Chapter 503. Well, its real function is its left front palm. Chuyang was speechless. He looked at this majestic giant bear that was surrounded by dozens of king-level experts. But the sword spirit said that it was useless. Dooku was also disappointed. He muttered, "Motherfucker, how did this thing come out? What kind of spirit beast is this?" He suddenly became angry. "This is a waste of my time." Then, he suddenly shouted, "Everyone, get out of my way. Are you all going to give food to this monster by squeezing in here?" Everyone who was fighting was furious. They turned around and saw a figure rushing over at lightning speed. Dooku's green robe fluttered in the wind. His body tore through the air and tore apart the snowflakes. A thunderous sound echoed in the sky. His body brought about a strong airflow and sent dozens of king-level experts flying. He arrived on top of the ancient ice bear's head. He didn't say anything and ferociously kicked the shoulder of this big bear. The ice bear let out a loud roar, and its mountain-like body was kicked into the air. It flew 70 to 80 feet away and landed on its butt on an ice peak with a loud bang. The ice peak shattered into pieces with a series of crashing sounds. Then, it jumped up and looked at Dooku in horror. Dooku was about to fly over. Then, it suddenly screamed, turned around, and ran away. This arrogant monster had been swaggering around a moment ago. But it was now running away with its tail between its legs after being kicked by Dooku. This shocking scene made everyone open their mouths and eyes wide open. They looked at Dooku as if they were looking at an immortal. Is he still human? Dooku didn't give chase. Instead, he landed on the ground with his clothes fluttering in the wind. He looked at the group of people with disdain and said in a disdainful manner, "Trash like you actually dared to chase after a spirit beast. Do you know that a spirit beast's fart can kill you? You're so ignorant. Why aren't you getting out of my way? Do you want to die?" That group of people obviously came from several clans. Dooku's words were unpleasant to hear. But they didn't dare to refute him. They didn't even dare to look at him with angry eyes. They just smiled and retreated. "I'm asking you to get out of my way. Don't you understand?" Dooku was furious. He rushed forward and kicked a man's butt. With a "pa" sound, the man immediately rolled forward like a rubber ball. "That's how it should be. Get out of my sight. Otherwise, you'll die." Dooku was clearly a little irritable. He kicked 7 or 8 times in succession, and kicked the 7 or 8 king-level experts like rubber balls. The group of people dared to be angry but did not dare to say anything. They could only bow down and choose to scram in humiliation, quickly leaving. Even after these people had rolled away and disappeared from his sight, Dooku's anger still hadn't subsided. "Brother Yu's temper is a bit big today," Chuyang gently smiled and asked. "This Duke came here for the spirit beasts. Only spirit beasts are of great use. Yet, I ran into a bastard bear that pretends to be a spirit beast." Dooku snorted and said, "If the commotion this time was caused by this bear, then wouldn't we have made a wasted trip? This level of spirit beast. How could it be so easy to see?" Sigh. At the end of his speech, he actually sighed. "I see." Chuyang secretly nodded. He thought that this was the reason. No wonder he didn't even care about the inner core of this ice bear. It turned out that he only had one goal, and that was to find a spirit beast. We've seen many spirit beasts before. Most of them were 5th or 7th grade. They weren't very powerful either. Why is this ice bear so tyrannical when it's only 8th grade? Shuo Du-Xing came forward and asked. How can 7th grade and 8th grade be compared? This is the difference between heaven and earth. Dooku said angrily, "Moreover, this ice bear is at the peak of 8th grade. It needs a strong opportunity and time to break through to the 8th grade. This is also the reason why I didn't kill it." Chuyang laughed. "So, Brother Yu is still waiting for this big guy to break through. In case we can't find a spirit beast, then this ice bear can barely be used after it breaks through," Dooku said with a gloomy face. While talking, everyone used their movement techniques and set off towards the depths of the wilderness. By nightfall, they had already run for thousands of miles. A towering mountain stood in front of them. "That's my home." Dooku stopped his footsteps and looked at the ice peak in a somewhat melancholy manner. His voice carried a trace of nostalgia as he said, I grew up here. I've been here since I can remember. Haha, I don't have parents, relatives, masters, or friends. The only thing that has been accompanying me has always been here. This ice peak. Chu Yang and Shuo Du Xing looked at each other, and saw the shock in each other's eyes. I didn't leave here until I reached the Emperor level. Then, I went to the upper three heavens. Dooku sighed as he looked at the familiar scenery of this place. He said in a low voice, I didn't know why other people have parents, but I don't. I always felt that it was unfair because of this. But, I later found out that other people don't have parents because they are dead, missing, or abandoned. But, I don't have any parents at all. Chu Yang pondered over these words in his heart. Suddenly, he felt extremely shocked. I don't have any parents at all. What does this mean? Inside Chu Yang's mind, the sword spirit also opened his eyes wide in shock. He muttered, so, he is, what? The sword spirit didn't continue to speak. I wandered in the upper three heavens for several years. But, I finally felt that there was nothing fun to do there. So, I offended a big clan in order to save a person. And, the person I saved immediately betrayed me. So, I was chased down by 3 saint-level experts of that big clan. Hehe, I was finally caught. Then, I was crippled, and my aptitude was destroyed. Ha ha ha. How can I be a good person? Chu Yang and the others were full of amazement. They hadn't expected that this handsome Duke Yu of the upper three heavens was the minister of the dark bamboo. And, he had such a tragic past. Duke Yu forced a smile. His face was full of bitterness. In the face of this icy mountain, his mentality seemed to have suddenly become somewhat weak. They thought that I would die for sure. Unfortunately, I didn't die. Moreover, I escaped. I went through many twists and turns in the upper three heavens. Then, I started from scratch. And, I arrived here step by step. Then, I wandered in the upper three heavens, and met Jun Shizhu. Duke Yu faintly smiled. I lost the bet, so, I promised to do something for her. But, I must take revenge for what happened in the upper three heavens. Duke Yu's green robe fluttered in the wind. He stood in front of the ice peak and insipidly said, This is my experience. Isn't it monotonous? It's not monotonous. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, It's very rocky. And, it's also very admirable. I can't guarantee that I wouldn't have reached your level if I had encountered your situation. Our physiques are different. Duke Yu gently smiled and said, We have fundamental differences. His green robe fluttered in the wind. Then, he insipidly said, Come with me. I'll fulfill my promise to you and repay my gambling debt. Second update. I'm not in good spirits today. That's all. Aunt Guan gave me a fierce blow. Asterisk. The real reason is, I went to learn how to drive this afternoon. I've been trying to get a driver's license for almost a year now. I failed the road test once. So, I'll fail 10 times if I don't pass. Now, the instructors of my driving school have started to give me gifts. They call me Grandpa when they see me. But, it's useless. I can't pass the test even if they call me Grandpa. Do you think I can pass the test just because I want to? Motherfucker, who doesn't want to pass the test? This afternoon, I drove my cousin's Mercedes-Benz to practice driving. And, I rushed into the flower bed of the development zone. I'm still sweating now. I'm scared. The car is fine. But, my cousin doesn't want me to come. Sigh, I'm going to sleep first. I'll sweat it out first. Chapter 504. Duke Yu floated forward and said indifferently, Only Chu Yang, you can come with me. The rest of you can wait here. After all, I only owe Chu Yang, not you. Baidu search network high quality update Chu Yang gestured for Jiyu Duxing and the others to wait here for a while. Then, he followed Duke Yu alone. Jiyu Duxing and Dong Wushong looked at each other and saw the understanding in each other's eyes. Luo Kudi and Ji Mo were a little angry. However, Jiyu Duxing and Dong Wushong were cold and lonely people. They could understand Duke Yu. Although they didn't have the same twists and turns as Duke Yu, The two of them had this feeling before. Moreover, one's status and strength also determined one's habits and mood. Therefore, Jiu Du-shing looked at Jukyu's back with eyes full of understanding, envy, and pity. He envied his strength and pitied his loneliness. It was easy for a person at the lowest level to make friends. He could call his friends to play with him all day long. That was because there were too many people like him. But once he had a certain status, the number of true friends would start to decrease. That kind of defense would arise in his heart for no reason. He would subconsciously keep a distance from others. This made the word friend become a natural moat. And a person at the top would only have subordinates and allies left. The word ally also had the word friend in it. But the unfamiliarity and vigilance could sometimes make people feel worse than facing an enemy. If he was a dictator, he could only be lonely. This was also the reason why the emperors of the past could only be called loners. Because their status determined that they would never, ever, have friend. Perhaps they also desired to have friends in their hearts. But, in reality, they could only be lonely. No one would dare to make friends with such people. Chu Yang was lamenting about this matter in his heart. If one wanted to have both strength and friends, they would have to be like him. They would have to work hard and improve together with their brothers to reach the peak together. This kind of friendship that had become a habit and instinct since young could last forever. Chu Yang decided that no matter what, he couldn't be as lonely as Jukyu. He could feel that Jukyu's emotions were obviously very intense and extreme at this moment. If someone provoked him at this moment, it would definitely be as terrifying as a volcanic eruption. As for Jukyu's emotional fluctuations, it should be because of the sudden appearance of the ancient ice bear, which had aroused his resentment towards the spirit beast. So, what kind of use would a spirit beast have for Jukyu? No matter what the use was, it was definitely going to be huge, right? Otherwise, Jukyu would not have lost his composure like this. Jukyu had grown up in this place since he was a child. He could kick a peak 8th grade spirit beast more than 30 meters away with a single kick. Could it be that he had never seen a peak grade spirit beast before? Or perhaps there was no other way? Then, how terrifying would a spirit beast be? Was there really such a huge difference in just one level? Chu Yang pondered over these things in his heart. He seemed to have thought of something. Theoretically speaking, there should be a difference of one level. The difference is like the difference between heaven and earth, right? But why wasn't the level difference that big before this? Could it be that spirit beasts had to cultivate the same way as humans? The higher the level, the stricter the hierarchy, and the distinctions between the two. He was silent the entire way as he followed Jukyu into the icy mountain. Jukyu's green robe fluttered in the wind as he arrived at the foot of the mountain. Chu Yang suddenly discovered that this icy peak was very different from the other peaks. It was actually vertical. Moreover, it was one from top to bottom. Rather than saying that this was a cloud-piercing mountain, it would be better to say that this was an entire piece of ancient mysterious ice. This is my home. Jukyu clasped his hands behind his back as he stood at the foot of this icy peak. His back was facing Chu Yang. He seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life as he lightly said, "You are the first guest in my home after so many years." As he spoke, he shook his sleeves and revealed his clean hands. Then, he grabbed a ball of ice and snow from the air and carefully wiped his 10 fingers. With a thought, the whistling ice and snow covered his entire body. Then, it dissipated with a bang. Chu Yang had a feeling that the current Jukyu was much cleaner than before. He actually washed his entire body before entering his home. It could be seen how much he loved this home of his. My home needs to be clean when I enter it and leave it clean when I come out. When I come and go, it must not be tainted with dust. When I come and go, it must not be tainted with dust. Jukyu softly said, "Only I can enter this place. Even if I get married in the future, only I can enter. Even my wife and children can't enter this home of mine." He gently smiled as if he was filled with helplessness. Then, he said, "But now, there is one more you." As he spoke, he stretched out his hands and clasped them together in front of his chest. Then, he slowly separated them. Suddenly, a pure and holy white light appeared between his hands. The white light flashed and fiercely shone on the ice wall of the icy peak. Then, a wave of pure heaven and earth energy suddenly spread out from this ice wall. Chuyang smelled it and felt comfortable all over. Then, a door silently appeared on the ice wall. The inside of the door was filled with gentle white light. This door appeared so naturally, just like this ice mountain. It existed so naturally. Duke Yu's hands hung down as he looked at this door with infinite longing. He gently exhaled and said, "Please come in, Chuyang." Chuyang hesitated for a moment and said, "Since your wife can't enter, then wouldn't it be inappropriate for me to enter? Why don't I wait for you outside?" "No need. My wife can't enter, but it doesn't mean that you can't as well." Duke Yu's eyes flashed. He said, "I don't want you to enter either, but I feel that you should." Chuyang took a deep breath and said, "Okay." Following behind Duke Yu, he walked into this magical icy peak. Before he walked in, he turned back to take a look. He was looking in the direction where Jiyu Duxing and the others were, but he only saw the wind and snow all over the sky. He didn't see anything else. It was as if Jiyu Duxing, Mo Qingwu, and the others had all suddenly disappeared at this moment. "They can't see this place, and you can't see them either," Duke Yu said coldly, "if I don't want others to see my residence. Even supreme martial artists can't see it. This has nothing to do with cultivation, but is the principle of heaven and earth. The private nature of heaven and earth." Duke Yu laughed mischievously. Chuyang didn't know why, but he felt that Duke Yu's laughter was full of ridicule and coldness. It was as if he didn't care about the principle of heaven and earth, the private nature of heaven and earth that Duke Yu had just said. The moment the footsteps of the two people disappeared inside the door suddenly disappeared from the world. What appeared between the heaven and earth was still that icy peak that didn't seem to be any different from the other peaks. It stood there silently. After Chuyang went in, he was startled. This mountain peak was indeed a hole. However, the space inside seemed to be formed by nature. The white light in the surroundings came from nowhere, but it shone softly, making the inside of this space very clear. Chuyang felt as if he was walking in his own dream. The air inside this space formed by the icy peak was fresh and clean, as warm as spring. In fact, there was even an extremely lush heavenly orchid growing on one side of the passage. It almost covered half of the stone wall. Looking at the appearance of this heavenly orchid, each piece was like the most exquisite jade, and there was only one flower left in the center. The color of the flower had already turned into a colorful color. Chuyang smacked his lips fiercely. This heavenly orchid has already grown for 10,000 years. The heavenly orchid changes every 10,000 years, and only one color appears every 10,000 years. The heavenly orchid only adds one color every 10,000 years. It was the supreme elixir of the world. However, this kind of supreme spiritual medicine was completely useless to ordinary people. In fact, it was a deadly poison. Even an emperor-level expert would explode and die after eating one piece of it. It was rumored that the heavenly orchid's petals could solidify one's divine soul forever once one reached the saint level or above. Moreover, one could reincarnate with a complete memory and 30% of one's cultivation if they died after eating the heavenly orchid. Think about it, a saint-level expert would become an infant with a saint-level memory and 30% of one's cultivation, and then cultivate again with this as the most basic foundation. How terrifying would that be? 30% of a saint-level expert's strength would be at least at the monarch level. A person who was bound to die would be able to solidify his divine soul forever if he ate the heavenly orchid, and reincarnate. Therefore, this heavenly orchid was the #1 panacea in the world, but it was useless to the living. It was only useful to the dead. In other words, it was only useful to the soul. However, for such a huge function, there were also extremely harsh conditions. And that was, the color of the heavenly orchid must reach 10 colors. Even an immortal wouldn't be able to save it if it had 10 colors. But 10 colors meant that it was 100,000 years old. Who could wait for such a long time? Therefore, it only existed in legends. However, Chuyang had never imagined that he would see a 10,000-year-old heavenly orchid as soon as he came in. The sword spirit's breathing became hurried like a bellows. He was so excited that his lips trembled. "Chuyang, Sword Lord, this heavenly orchid. You must get your hands on it. This thing is simply too useful for you and me. Chu Yang frowned. Huh? My divine soul will be solidified forever. The sword spirit's eyes stared straight. Saliva was dripping from the corners of his mouth. Wouldn't I be a divine soul? Moreover, I'm a remnant soul. I really need this thing. I'm afraid it won't be easy. Chu Yang was very hesitant. Dukyu is very protective of his home. So, he obviously treasures it to the extreme. It would be very difficult for me to take away this 10,000-year-old heavenly orchid from here. Moreover, I can't steal it. People respect me, and I respect them tenfold. Dukyu invited me here. Could it be that he wants me, Chu Yang, to be a thief? Chu Yang wouldn't be able to get over this hurdle in his heart if he took it without asking. But, what do I have to move Dukyu? Chapter 505. He smiled proudly and said, but after so many years, only these 5 items are qualified to be placed here by me. Dukyu walked forward slowly and said, come, let me introduce them to you. As he spoke, he walked to the front of the first shelf. Chu Yang saw very clearly that these were 3 grains of black sand. They looked very ordinary. This is heavenly river sand. When Dukyu said these 3 words, it was as if a thunderbolt had struck in Chu Yang's heart. Heavenly river sand. The legendary heavenly river sand that could turn something rotten into something magical. A grain of Milky Way sand could transform a trash that practiced chi reversal into an unparalleled genius. Whether it was his aptitude or his comprehension, it would increase by thousands of times. Heavenly river sand was originally not something that belonged to this world. Instead, it was a treasure left behind by the legendary person who created the heavens. Where it came from was no longer known. But the heavenly river sand's function was not limited to this. The Milky Way sand was something that could turn anything rotten into something magical. If ordinary iron was used to forge a weapon, if a grain of heavenly river sand was added, it could cut through iron like mud. If one was lucky enough to refine a grain of heavenly river sand in his meridians, then no matter how he cultivated, he would not encounter any bottleneck. But, if one wanted to refine this thing, they would need a supreme opportunity and fate. Without fate, even a supreme martial artist would not be able to refine it. And Dukyu actually had 3 grains here. There were originally 4 grains of this thing, but I had refined one before. So it became 3 grains. That's why I was able to make a comeback in a very short time after being crippled. Dukyu looked at Chu Yang and smiled. He said, when I refined this thing, I was only 3 years old. I understand. Chu Yang suddenly realized. Yes, you understood half of it. Chu Yang did not say what he understood, but Dukyu directly said that he only understood half of it, and his tone was very certain. Oh, but what is the other half? Chu Yang asked. You only understood that refining this heavenly river sand requires a red heart without any distracting thoughts. But you did not know that it not only requires a red heart, but also an innate spirit. Dukyu said lightly, for example, someone like me. So, that's how it is. Chu Yang suddenly realized. He lost interest in this plaything. Good stuff. This is a good stuff. No wonder Dukyu was able to refine it so quickly. However, this thing was useless to Chu Yang. After all, not everyone had the same background as Dukyu. Kai-Shin was easy to find, but an innate spiritual body like Dukyu was even harder to find than the heavenly river sand. It seems like you're not interested. Dukyu smiled and walked to the second shelf. This is purple crystal jade essence. It's one of the lesser things I have here, but it's a treasure of this layer of heaven. It's very hard to find. Purple crystal jade essence. These words made Chu Yang's heart skip a beat. Wasn't his identity jade token the purple crystal jade essence? Stepping forward to take a closer look, he held it in his hand. Regardless of whether it was the color or the feel of it, it was exactly the same as his own piece of purple crystal jade essence. Furthermore, when he recalled the shape of the jade token, it seemed to be able to merge with the one in front of him. It was as if they were originally a single entity. This seems to be missing a piece. It feels a little incomplete, Chu Yang said tentatively. Your eyesight is really good. Speaking of which, There's a story behind this piece of purple crystal jade essence. Dukyu smiled. There was a trace of nostalgia in his eyes. There was even a bit of warmth. Back then, when I was traveling in the upper three heavens, a family happened to buy a piece of heavenly crystal stone. They spent a huge sum of money. At that time, there were a few other people and I who were bidding for it. However, it was won by that guy. I didn't have enough money with me, and I wasn't willing to use treasures to exchange for it. Haha. Then, I had a chance to drink with that person at the same table. We got along very well. He then invited me to see the heavenly crystal stone with my own eyes. At that time, I was also very curious about that stone, so I went. You must know that once a heavenly crystal stone is cut open, it's either purple crystal, blue crystal, or white crystal inside. Before it's opened, no one can see it. Although I had some confidence that the heavenly crystal stone could contain something good, I didn't dare to be sure. So, I followed to verify my own eyesight. In the end, when it was cut open, it turned out to be a big piece of variegated purple crystal. That old man was very depressed. Dukyu recalled the events of that year, and smiled very happily, but when it reached that level, I sensed that there was a very restrained aura of treasure inside. So, I suggested that he use the crystal grinding hand to grind out the variegated purple crystal. He listened to my advice. After he finished grinding, he actually took out a piece of rare purple crystal jade essence from inside. It's this piece, Dukyu said. In order to thank me, he divided this piece of purple crystal jade essence into 2 pieces, and gave me half of it. At that time, his granddaughter was about to get married, and his great-grandson was about to be born. So, he made his half into 2 pieces of jade. 2 pieces of jade. Chu Yang's heart beat like a drum. In that instant, he felt that his eyes were a little blurry. That old man then asked me to carve a name on those 2 pieces of jade. One piece was prepared for his great-grandson, and the other piece was prepared for his great-grandson. I still remember that I used my supreme martial arts and martial saint strength to carve a word on the inside of the jade essence without damaging the surface of these 2 pieces of jade. What word? Chu Yang asked anxiously. I've carved the word Yang on one of the pieces, and the word Chu on the other piece. Dukyu smiled in a carefree manner. Chu Yang's whole body trembled. The secret of his identity jade had finally been unintentionally solved today. It was a gift from his grandfather, and the word on it was actually carved by Dukyu himself. What's wrong with this world? What kind of topsy-turvy world is this? Chu Yang grumbled in his heart, but his eyes couldn't help but heat up a little. Of course, at that old man's request, I also spent some money to set up a restriction. At that time, I once jokingly said, "Old man, I can carve this word today. In the future, when your child is born, you can drip the blood from the tip of the baby's tongue onto this piece of jade, and it can be combined with the surname of the child. After 5 years, the connection will slowly become stronger and stronger. With my restriction, you won't be able to lose your child even if you want to." Dukyu laughed heartily. Obviously, he remembered the strange expression on his old friend's face back then, and he quickly came to his senses. It's no wonder. That old man was wholeheartedly waiting for his great-grandson to come back, and this guy actually cursed him to lose his child. This was such a spoil sport. Chu Yang's lips twitched a few times, and he bitterly raised his head to look at this super crow mouth. Motherfucker! If you didn't say this back then, I might not have lost my child. Chapter 506. Not long after that incident, I was besieged and attacked. That elder brother of mine was seriously injured in order to help me. Even his clan was almost destroyed. There was a nostalgic look on Dukyu's face as he said, "This piece of purple crystal jade essence isn't much of a treasure. However, the reason why I placed it here is because, in the entire heavens, only one person helped me back then. **** Baidu search network's high quality updates the fastest ****. I kept it here as a sign of friendship," Dukyu said slowly. "So that's how it is." Chu Yang's throat was dry. He felt that he wouldn't say anything else today. He kept repeating this sentence over and over again, "So that's how it is." Too unexpected. Too amazing. It's a miracle. Looking at this guy's young face, he seemed to be less than 30 years old. I didn't expect him to have lived for so many years. Motherfucker, great-grandson? Didn't that mean that this guy was actually from my great-grandfather's generation? Hey, brother you. Chu Yang laughed dryly. Huh. Duke Yu looked at him with a puzzled expression. You want this? No, no, no. Brother you, cough cough. Brother you. Brother you. Chu Yang repeatedly called out brother you a few times. He thought in his heart, motherfucker, I can even take advantage of this form of address. Calling him a few more times is better than being forced to call him grandpa you later, right? Motherfucker, what is this? What is it? Duke Yu was puzzled. Cough cough. Brother you, what I mean is. Brother you, haven't you gone back to take a look for so many years? Chu Yang asked casually. I want to go back and take a look, but my current cultivation is not enough. Duke Yu sighed, if I go back, I'm afraid that I'll implicate my elder brother's clan and cause its destruction. How would I dare to go back? I changed my appearance and hid for 3 days for so many years because I didn't want them to be implicated by me, one of the Zai clans of the upper 3 heavens. How could it be so easy to deal with them? Duke Yu was somewhat disappointed. If they knew that I was crippled to such an extent, and was still able to recover, this would be a secret that those Zai clans would dream of knowing. If someone were to discover that I was that person from back then. Hee. Oh. I see. Chu Yang understood. He didn't expect that such a carefree person like Duke Yu would be so meticulous when it came to thinking for others. It's a pity that I haven't been able to see my elder brother all these years. I do miss him a little. Duke Yu's thoughts wandered. We should look at the third treasure now. Chu Yang felt a chill run down his spine when he heard him call him elder brother. So, he touched his nose and said, Damn it, you want to take advantage of me? No way. Even though the sword spirit was very depressed right now, he couldn't help but feel proud of it. This is the third treasure. Duke Yu looked at the white snowflakes on the third lotus flower. His voice was heated as he said, But this thing. I can't give it to you even if you want it. I have a great use for it. I want to keep it. When I reach the bottleneck of the Supreme Being realm, I will use this thing to break through to the Supreme Being realm in one go. He took a deep look at the snow-white snowflakes and said, This is a snowflake that reaches the heavens. It only has one use, and that is to break through. All right then. Chu Yang spread out his hands. Since you don't want to give it to me, what's the point of talking about it? Next one. Chu Yang really wasn't interested in this snowflake. Because, this thing was used to break through to the Supreme Being realm. How long would it take for him to break through to the Supreme Being realm? Even though this thing could be kept in Duke Yu's hands, it would probably fuse with his body before he could store it in the tribulation space. And this thing could help a saint-level cultivator break through to the Supreme Being realm. How much energy would it contain? Even the sword spirit wouldn't be able to extract the energy before he exploded and died. In that case, he would become the first tribulation swordmaster in history to die of greed. The fourth one is the real gift I prepared for you. Duke Yu smiled and said, This is a piece of sun and moon ointment. He smiled and said, I promised you purple crystal core at first, but I really don't have that thing here. I wanted to replace it with purple crystal jade essence. Even though it's much more precious than purple crystal core, it's the least valuable thing in my treasury. But when it came to it, I realized that I still couldn't bear to give it to you, because it's a favor. Duke Yu looked at that piece of purple crystal jade essence. His eyes were full of deep emotions. He slowly said, So I can only give you this piece of sun and moon ointment. This. I've really taken advantage of you. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. He felt dizzy and disoriented about this huge favor that had fallen from the sky. The tribulation sword was already rolling in excitement when the sun and moon ointment returned to his body. It can also be considered as repayment for the mysterious jade ice crystal and mysterious young jade that you gave me. Duke Yu smiled and said, You're really good at doing business. The mysterious jade ice crystal and mysterious young jade can't be compared to the sun and moon ointment in terms of value. But I have no use for the sun and moon ointment. And those two things are exactly what I need urgently but can't find. He laughed and said, When a person is hungry, he can use 500 kilograms of gold to exchange for a steamed bun. It depends on the situation at that time. 500 kilograms of gold can't buy a life, but a steamed bun can save a life. This is the principle. He tilted his head and looked at Chu Yang. Tell me, is it worth it to exchange a steamed bun for gold? It's worth it. Chu Yang smiled calmly and said, no matter what, I've taken advantage of you today. Except for the purple crystal jade essence, the other 4 things in this treasury are all my family's property. They've existed since I was born. Duke Yu laughed. It can be considered as a gift from my ancestors. Now that I've given it to someone, I don't know if those dead people will crawl out of their graves to settle accounts with me. He took down the sun and moon ointment as he said this, and handed it to Chu Yang. He was really free and easy. He didn't even look reluctant to part with it. It was as if he had thrown out a piece of trash. Chu Yang also smiled and said, since that's the case, I really need it. I won't stand on ceremony. He kept the sun and moon ointment. The sun and moon ointment, as its name implied, was a kind of strange energy that was formed by the fusion of the essence of the sun and the moon in the sky. After countless years of condensation, the essence of the sun and the moon converged in one place. It was as soft as cotton, and as light as nothing. This kind of thing was especially useful for sabers and swords. Any saber or sword, as long as a little of it was smeared on it, it would be nourished by the blood and slowly develop spiritual intelligence. Although this was a long process, it was a peerless function that nothing else could replace. What was the difference between a weapon that had its own spiritual intelligence and an ordinary divine weapon? It couldn't even be compared. Moreover, the weapon that had been smeared with the sun and moon ointment would have the ability to remember. No matter how damaged the weapon was, it would automatically recover to its best state. And this was the function that the Calamity Sword lacked. As long as the sun and moon ointment was melted into the Calamity Sword, then the divine weapons that the Calamity Sword created in the future would also have this ability. Indestructible. The returning Dantian sword spirit took a deep breath, and muttered, it seems that the world has changed. The previous masters of the Calamity Sword didn't get such a good thing. But, all the good things in this generation have automatically returned to the Calamity Sword. I've fulfilled my promise to you. And, it seems that you're very satisfied with it. Duke Yu smiled and said, now, it's time for the bet. Heavenly Orchid. Heavenly Orchid. Heavenly Orchid. Heavenly Orchid. Xie Ling crazily shouted in his mind. Well, there's one more thing. Chu Yang took a deep breath, and felt the urging of the sword spirit in his mind. Then, he probed, your heavenly orchid is of great use to me. I don't know if brother Yu, can you use it? Chu Yang thought for a long time, and several ideas spun in his mind. Then, he finally decided to go straight to the point, and directly state his purpose. After all, he would be the one to suffer losses if he played with Duke Yu. Heavenly Orchid. Duke Yu suddenly turned around, and looked at Chu Yang's face with his sharp eyes. You want the Heavenly Orchid? Yes, Chu Yang looked straight at him, and nodded without hesitation. Since you know about the Heavenly Orchid, then you should also know that this Heavenly Orchid is only 10,000 years old. Duke Yu looked at him in a scrutinizing manner, and, a 10,000-year-old Heavenly Orchid is an extremely toxic poison. It doesn't have the least bit of use. So, what do you want it for? As for what I want it for, I can't tell you, Chu Yang calmly said, but, I do want it. And, it's of great use. Duke Yu sneered and said, I promised you the purple crystal core, but I gave you the sun and moon ointment. You gave me the yin and yang jades, but I gave you an entire white crystal mine. King of Hell Chu, I don't owe you anything. So, why should I give you the heavenly orchid? But, I don't know what you want. I can exchange it with you if I can, Chu Yang said carefully. Ha ha. What do I want? Duke Yu suddenly burst into mournful laughter. His laughter reverberated in this sealed space for a long time. Then, he looked at Chu Yang with his cold eyes and said, I've told you so much. Do you know my origin? Do you know the origin of this icy peak? Do you know the origin of the Heavenly Orchid? I don't know. You don't know anything. But, you want the Heavenly Orchid from me? Duke Yu laughed. The ignorant are fearless. I dare to ask for it because I don't know. Chu Yang insipidly said, I'm afraid that I wouldn't even have the courage to open my mouth if I knew these things that you've said. Brother Yu, your laughter is too loud. It's making my ears feel uncomfortable. Duke Yu's eyes flashed. He snorted. He naturally understood what Chu Yang meant by your laughter is too loud. It's making my ears feel uncomfortable. 10,000 years ago, there was a peerless genius who integrated the heavenly layer. But he exterminated 5 races of the clan. Duke Yu's eyes flashed with a mysterious light. He said, this icy peak is the only heritage left behind by a certain race of the clan 10,000 years ago. In order to prevent the extinction of their bloodline, they exhausted the strength of the entire clan to preserve this heritage. The treasures inside this place are the remnants of the clan from 10,000 years ago. This heavenly orchid is a young plant from 10,000 years ago, he said heavily, and this duke, 10,000 years ago, was just an embryo in this space. I didn't have the help of any of my clansmen. I only relied on the strength of this heritage. And it took me 10,000 years to become a reincarnated human. There are 2 things. The first is to ask for monthly votes. I will continue to write. The fourth is. Chapter 507. Duke Yu sneered, would you exchange this heavenly orchid for something if you were me? **** Baidu search network high quality update *** no. Chu Yang sighed. Sword Spirit also sighed in his mind. How could there be any hope if Duke Yu had said so? Duke Yu took a few steps forward, and arrived at the passage. He looked at the heavenly orchid for a long time. His eyes were full of reluctance. Then, he slowly said, this thing is precious, and it's the only living witness I have. But I can give it to you if you promise me one thing. What is it? Chu Yang's heart trembled. What is your identity? Duke Yu suddenly turned his head, and looked at Chu Yang. Then, he asked without rhyme or reason. Are you? Duke Yu approached him step by step. Brother Yu? Are you? Duke Yu said are you a dozen times in a row. The look in his eyes became even more ferocious. But he suddenly exposed a trace of contradiction and pain. Then, he finally stopped and said, do you have a strange storage space? Chu Yang turned pale with fright when he asked this question. But Chu Yang was even more surprised when he didn't ask this question. Duke Yu didn't ask this question clearly. But Chu Yang knew what it was. Don't worry. I will keep your secret. Duke Yu's forehead was sweating. He lowered his head in disappointment and said, I started to suspect you the first time I saw you. I started to be certain when I was outside the prefectural city. So, I deliberately left, and let you do your own thing. Diwu Qingru came to look for me 3 days before you arrived. Duke Yu gently smiled. But his smile was full of complexity. So, I was half certain when I saw your cultivation when you came up. You plundered treasures and strange metals all the way here. So, I was basically certain. Duke Yu clasped his hands behind his back and laughed mischievously. There was a hint of self-mockery in his laughter as he said, therefore, I originally wanted to find 2 purple crystal cores for you. However, I changed my mind and gave you the sun and moon ointment instead. Now, do you understand what I mean? Duke Yu tilted his head and looked at Chu Yang. Chu Yang took a deep breath. He felt that his thoughts were somewhat flustered. But he forced himself to calm down. Then, he said in a low and deep voice, Duke Yu is indeed worthy of being called Duke Yu. Don't worry. No one in this world can link you to these clues apart from me and the big ruling clans of the upper 3 heavens. As for the hegemon clans, you don't have to worry about them for now. Even Diwu Qingru, who was in direct contact with you, only had a little guess. In fact, his chances of success are no more than 10 to 20%. That's why Diwu Qingru placed such a huge bet on you. He didn't hesitate to overthrow himself in order to fulfill your wish. Duke Yu snorted. 10 to 20%, and he dares to be so crazy. Chu Yang was a little puzzled. A 10 to 20% chance of success is already beyond our expectations. Diwu Qingru would risk everything to fight for this 1000th chance even if it's only 1000th chance. Duke Yu chuckled. Diwu Qingru wouldn't leak your information. On the contrary, You're a rare commodity to him. He wouldn't even have enough time to hide it, because he has placed the hope of the Daewoo clan on you. You're finished, and so is the Daewoo clan. There's such a thing. Chu Yang was really at a loss. Where did this come from? Dukyu smiled coldly. Take me for example. I really want to kill you. Because you're the master of that thing's inheritance after all. But, I can't kill you. Moreover, I have to protect you. In fact, I have to give you whatever you want. So, you have to promise me one thing. What is it? Chu Yang asked. Dukyu had already mentioned this condition twice in a row. I only want you to promise me now. I'll mention it when the time is right. Dukyu said, you don't know whether you can do it or not now. I also don't know whether you can do it or not. But, I have to remind you that you'll be in a very difficult position if that day comes. Dukyu sighed and said, so, you need to consider it carefully now. Chu Yang felt dizzy. You don't say anything. You want me to promise you, and then you want me to consider it carefully. What kind of statement is this? How can I consider it if you don't tell me anything? Can I consider it with my ass? Promise him. Promise him. Promise him RRR. Sword Spirit madly bared his fangs and brandished his claws in Chu Yang's mind. He was jumping up and down. His remnant soul was so excited that his face turned red. Chu Yang lowered his head. He seriously and deeply considered it. It must be a very important thing for Dukyu to say this. Moreover, I'll be in a very difficult position. Why am I in a very difficult position? Even now, the friendship between us is very close. Dukyu had helped me in Great Jiao and the Three Heavens, and he had also promised to be my brother's sparring partner. I would have fulfilled any condition that Dukyu had put forward even if he hadn't given me the heavenly orchid. But, he would rather use a priceless heavenly orchid in exchange for an illusory promise. Why? This shows that this matter is related to the principles of the Tribulation Sword Master. Chu Yang finally raised his head. He said with difficulty, I'm sorry, brother Yu. I refuse. Sword Spirit screamed in Chu Yang's mind. He fell to the ground. His face was covered in tears as he cursed, Great Sword Master. You're a cheap pig. A cheap pig. Motherfucker, you rushed to ask for it when he didn't want to give it to you. But, you pushed him away when he gave it to you with both hands. You're cheap. Why are you so cheap? My heavenly orchid. Boo-hoo. My divine soul is forever fixed. Boo-hoo. My cheap pig. Lord RRRR. A disappointed look appeared on Dukyu's face. But, he nodded with gratification, you didn't agree. In fact, I was sure that you wouldn't agree. I wasn't wrong about you. He looked up to the sky and heaved a long sigh. His expression was full of loneliness and pain. Chu Yang's body suddenly relaxed after he had refused. He didn't have any more thoughts or burdens. So, he said, Brother Yu, I've disturbed you for a long time. Shouldn't we go out? Yes, and that white crystal ore. Sigh. Dukyu looked at Chu Yang with an unknown expression. Then, he forced a smile and said, I want to kill you right now. But, I don't dare to do so. That's because I don't have much time left. I'll disappear as soon as I've lived for 100,000 years. I'll disappear from this world. I can only do this even if you don't agree. He sighed and said, I don't expect you to agree to my conditions. I'll give you this heavenly orchid. It should grow better with you than with me. Remember, you owe me a favor. Favor? How? Chu Yang asked vigilantly. A favor means that you'll help me if you feel that you can fulfill my wish. But, I don't need you to force yourself if you can't. Dukyu took a deep breath. His eyes emitted a dazzling cold light. You mustn't refuse. I only have this little bit of hope left, and I'm still pinning it on your conscience. If you refuse, I really won't be able to stop myself from killing you. Don't forget that you've personally asked for this thing. So, if you don't want it now, Dukyu angrily said, even that man from 10,000 years ago wasn't as untrustworthy as you. Fuck me. Chu Yang forced a smile. He suddenly regretted that he had been blinded by lard. And, he had listened to Sword Spirit's instigation to ask for this heavenly orchid. This is great. Dukyu didn't give it to me when I asked for it. But, Yu forced it on me when I didn't want it. And I can't refuse it. Chu Yang saw Yu's ashen complexion. It seemed that he would fly into a rage out of humiliation if he didn't give this heavenly orchid to Chu Yang today. But what will I do if he asks me for help in the future if I accept it? Can I go against my conscience and say no? Chu Yang looked at this heavenly orchid as if he was looking at a hot potato. He didn't have the slightest hint of a peerless treasure anymore. The sword spirit in Chu Yang's mind seemed to have realized that he had stirred up trouble. So, he lowered his head even though he was still drooling greedily. In fact, he looked a little embarrassed. Sir Sword Master has become like this because of me. Cough cough, I feel guilty. Sword Spirit secretly shot a glance at the heavenly orchid from the corner of his eye. Then, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It's a good thing. Do you want it or not? Do you want it or not? Yu angrily said, give me a straight answer. You can take it if you want it. But, I will kill you if you don't want it. Isn't this a good choice? Isn't this a good choice? Chu Yang wanted to cry. Did you fucking setting sail watermark give me a choice? What kind of choice is this? Yu is forcing a good girl to become a prostitute in order to give away this wonderful treasure. An ominous glint flickered in his eyes. His entire body was seething with murderous aura. He was about to lose control. Minister Chu was dumbfounded. I was the only honored guest a moment ago. But, I have become a lamb in the tiger's mouth at this moment. Even my wife won't let me enter this place. But, his face immediately changed after I entered this place and was warmly entertained. What can I do? Minister Chu was helpless. He pinched his nose, and reluctantly said, well, I'll accept it. Young Master Chu wanted to cry as soon as he said this. How can I be so depressed after receiving someone else's treasure? What's going on here? It's obvious that I've been longing for that heavenly orchid. But, why does it seem like a virgin girl has been sold to a brothel, and has no choice but to accept a customer under the torture of the procuress? That's my good brother. Yu's anger suddenly turned into joy. He heavily patted Chu Yang's shoulder. Then, he rubbed his hands, and said somewhat impatiently, do you want to pull it out yourself? Or, do you want me to pull it out for you? It's better to cut the Gordian knot with a quick knife. The sooner you take it in, the sooner I'll feel relieved. You feel relieved. But, I'm starting to feel worried, Chu Yang said in a plaintive manner. He felt extremely wronged in his heart. You're so boring. I've obviously given you a peerless treasure that can't be found anywhere in the world. But, you feel wronged like this. This is a very strange thing. Yu had finally received a big favor from Chu Yang. So, he was very happy. In fact, he even started to joke around. Chapter 508. King of Hell Chu furiously said to the sword spirit in his mind, look at the trouble you've caused. Why aren't you taking it? The sword spirit hastily replied in high spirits. He then eagerly started to take action. The heavenly orchid disappeared from the passage with a sure sound under Yu's dumbstruck gaze. You must be more spirited and obedient when I call you to do something in the future. I will tear the heavenly orchid apart if you give me trouble again. Chu Yang fiercely threatened him in his mind. The sword spirit fondly fiddled with the heavenly orchid while nodding repeatedly. This was the first time he had been so obedient since he had entered Chu Yang's mind. Let's go. I will take you to the white crystal mine. Yu looked at Chu Yang with envy. He then started to walk outside. He suddenly stopped after walking for a while. He muttered to himself for a long time. Then, he turned around. Chu Yang, you owe me a favor today. This is equivalent to the biggest favor I will owe you in the future. Yu frowned. He didn't know where to start. So, he said with difficulty, I want to remind you of something. Brother Yu, please speak. Chu Yang inexplicably felt his heart become heavy. He realized that the matter Yu was talking about was no trivial matter. You have the Calamity Sword in your body. As the master of the Calamity Sword, you have the Calamity Space in your body. This is a supreme magic weapon. It is also the #1 weapon in the heavenly layer. Once you master the Calamity Sword, you will be able to command the entire world. No one will dare to disobey you. Yu finally said the words calamity sword. But he still seemed somewhat unsatisfied. Chu Yang's entire body shook. He knew that Yu knew his identity. But he had said it out loud. And it had come from someone else's mouth. Chu Yang still felt shocked. But this thing is also. Yu's lips squirmed. Then he finally said, "It's not a good thing. There should be a corresponding thing. I can't say for sure. It is only mentioned in vague records." Vague records? Chu Yang frowned and asked. When the calamity comes, the wind and clouds dance. When the calamity is destroyed, the stars cry. When the world changes, the destiny. Yu recited in a deep voice. This is the calamity sword's calamity sword. This was a song about the calamity sword in the continent. There were a total of 10 lines, and there was only one line here. The last few lines are: the body is the calamity, the soul is the road, save the fall of the heavens, there is eternity, venerate as a god, don't be the master, bones and flesh are destroyed. Yu read until here and stopped abruptly. I also only know the last 7 sentences. After that, it's broken. Chu Yang muttered to himself. The first sentence was about the calamity sword's function, but the second sentence was clearly about the calamity sword's master. The body is a calamity, the soul is the path, the heavens are overturned, the ages are eternal. Venerate as a god, don't be the master. Destroy flesh and bone. These words were a little creepy. Anyway, be careful. Yu smiled faintly. Since I've given you such supreme authority as calamity sword and master, it would be abnormal if you didn't pay the corresponding price. Chu Yang laughed and said, "That's right." Then he put this matter aside, and the two walked out side by side. Outside, Mo Ching Wu's entire body was wrapped in a thick marten fur coat. She would stretch her neck from time to look at the snow-filled area in front of her. She had an anxious look on her face. She only saw Chu Yang and Yu walking to that place, and then they disappeared in a flash. Why hasn't brother Chu Yang come out yet? Mo Ching Wu muttered to herself anxiously. Today, the little girl was wearing a snow-white raccoon hat, a thick white raccoon fur scarf, and a snow-white raccoon fur coat. But on her feet, she wore a pair of exquisite red fox leather boots. Little Wu's face was snow-white, her eyebrows were delicate, and her eyes were dark. In this vast expanse of white snow, she looked extremely cute. The only thing that was lacking in beauty was that she was wearing too much. Chu Yang wrapped this little girl from the inside out with a few layers of cotton-padded jacket, cotton-padded trousers, cotton-padded waistcoat, and leather waistcoat. This directly caused the originally slender and even thin little girl to look like a penguin in the snow, or a little bear in the snow. She looked extremely bloated. She swayed from side to side as she walked, like a little bear carefully moving in the snow, but she looked even more adorable and cute. Brother Chu Yang has something to do inside. Ji-mo coaxed his little cousin. Come, little Wu, kiss brother Ji-mo's face, and I'll tell you what he has to do. Chimpate. Mo Ching Wu rolled her eyes and said, You and brother Ji-ju are the same, both of your faces are stinky. Ji-mo was instantly anxious. Don't compare that guy to me. I'm fragrant, if you don't believe me, kiss me. I don't kiss other men. Mo Ching Wu pouted. I haven't even kissed second brother. As she said that, she rolled her eyes at Ji-mo, implying, let alone you. Ji-mo retreated in defeat. Ji-yu Duxing and Dong Wushang pushed him aside and scolded, What's the point of bullying a little girl? Move aside. Ji-mo retreated unhappily, and walked to the front of the group with Luo Kedi, blocking the wind. The two of them winked at each other for a while, and Ji-mo suddenly asked, Has it grown? Luo Kedi's face turned red, and he shouted, Get lost. It hasn't grown? Ji-mo exclaimed. Then, he shrugged his shoulders and chuckled. He said, Mine is very luxuriant. Luo Kedi was speechless, and his eyes widened as if he wanted to eat someone. This topic started when these two lazy guys unintentionally took a bath together again, and young Master Ji-mo discovered Luo Kedi's, abnormality. Therefore, Luo Kedi suffered a tragedy, because second young Master Ji would mention this matter whenever he was with him, and second young Master Luo also felt extremely inferior. Jimo didn't let him off, and his eyes widened as he exclaimed, "I heard that Azure Dragon is gifted. This matter, TSK, little wolf, looks like you'll be very powerful." Luo Kedi's face immediately turned red, and he shouted angrily as he grabbed Jimo's collar, gnashing his teeth. "Do you want to be beaten?" Jimo hurriedly raised his hand. Spare me, spare me. I heard that hairless ones are the scariest." "Oh, dog aunt." "Wahahaha." Luo Kedi couldn't bear it anymore, and he clenched his fist and smashed it down. The two of them immediately rolled on the snowy ground and started to fight. Jimo was beating him while laughing so hard that he couldn't breathe. He was being beaten by Luo Kedi, but he still couldn't help but laugh. Luo Kedi was crazily beating this guy when he suddenly raised his head and exclaimed in surprise. Then, he stopped moving. Jimo also got up and followed Luo Kedi's gaze. He also exclaimed in surprise and stopped moving. He saw a graceful white figure leisurely coming from the wind and snow in front of him. It was a woman. She was wearing a snow-white dress, and her hair was tied up high. She floated over, and it was a pleasure to see such a scene in the wind and snow. Especially this woman's gentle face, and her eyes were looking left and right as she came, as if she was looking for something. Luo Kedi was dumbstruck, and he nudged Jimo. "Look, a beauty." Jimo's eyes lit up, and he repeatedly nodded. "She's fucking beautiful, she's very charming, and her steps are like lotuses." Luo Kedi shook his head. "It's as if she's wearing magnificent clothes to patrol the sky, and wearing silk clothes to walk in the night." Jimo turned his head in a circle. The two of them were somewhat lustful at this moment, and then they did something that they would regret for the rest of their lives. "Awu! Awu!" Luo Kedi loudly howled, and put his fingers in his mouth, and whistled. It was sharp and loud. "Awu! Dog aunt!" Jimo jumped up and down, and put his fingers in his mouth at the same time. Then, a whistle that was even sharper than Luo Kedi's whistle sounded. The woman in white heard the whistle from afar, and was about to walk towards the icy peak. However, she changed her direction, and walked towards the two of them. Her feet didn't touch the ground, and she gracefully walked over like a lotus in the wind. Jimo and Luo Kedi didn't wait for her to approach, and jumped out with a puff sound. The two of them exposed lecherous smiles as they went forward to greet her. "Awu! Elder sister, you're very beautiful." Luo Kedi turned his head in a circle, and was entranced by her beauty. Yes, you're very beautiful." Jimo hurriedly went forward, and was afraid that Luo Kedi would steal the limelight. "Really?" The woman indifferently looked at the two of them, and her eyes were dull. Really. Luo Kedi laughed out loud. "When I saw you, I wanted to write a poem." "Ah, let's praise you, you're too beautiful." "Elder sister, what's your surname?" Yes. Jimo used his shoulder to carry Luo Kedi to one side, and rushed to flatter her. "Elder sister, you're very beautiful. May I ask what's your name? When I saw you, I wanted to write a poem." "You wrote a poem? You wrote a poem?" The woman in white pointed at Jimo, and then pointed at Luo Kedi, and looked somewhat curious. "Of course." Luo Kedi proudly said, "My talent isn't just for show. Back then, I wrote a poem for my confinement nanny." Jimo repeatedly nodded. Yes, my poetic talent is matchless. This is known to all." "Hey, this beautiful elder sister, which family are you from? How come I've never seen you before? What's your name?" Humph. The woman in white suddenly laughed strangely, and said with a murderous aura, "My name is Jun Shizhu. Have you heard of me? Second young master Luo Kedi? Second young master Jimo?" "Ah!" Jimo and Luo Kedi let out a strange cry at the same time. Their scalps felt numb, and their bodies felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Luo Kedi's eyes turned red, and he was about to cry. My God, how did I tease this god of death by teasing a beauty? This is really, an old man is hanging himself. He has lived too long. Jun Shizhu was the overlord of the dark bamboo. She usually wore a black robe, and a black veil over her face. Basically, no one had seen her true appearance for 3 days. Even some old monsters knew about it, but no one dared to say it. How many days had it been since Jimo and Luo Kedi had wandered the Jianghu? They had only seen Jun Shiju once or twice. They had seen her from afar, and had quickly turned their gazes away. They had only seen her black robe, and had felt cold all over. So, how could they know Jun Shiju's true appearance? Moreover, these two were used to being casual. So, they wanted to flirt with this beauty whenever they saw her. They would only tease her every time, and then provoke her to get angry. Then, they would scream, and turn around to run away. They would then laugh heartily, and be incomparably happy. However, these two evil young men had flirted with a lot of young ladies of the three heavens. I didn't expect that I would run into a ghost this time around. They had flirted with the biggest and most terrifying underworld overlord of the three heavens. Chapter 509. Jun Shiju was also extremely depressed about encountering such a matter. She had changed out of her black clothes since she had arrived in the northern wilderness. She had gotten tired of wearing them. She had changed into new clothes, and had dressed up in her favorite plain clothes. She had then appeared in front of her few trusted subordinates. Dukyu had gone out today, and hadn't returned yet. Jun Shiju was somewhat worried. Moreover, she had just received the news that the clan that had a grudge against Dukyu had also sent people to hunt for spirit beasts in the northern wilderness. Jun Shiju was afraid that Dukyu might be in trouble. And, the other subordinates under her obviously weren't of any use. Therefore, she had to personally come out to look for him. She was the only one in the entire Dark Bamboo organization who could help in case something happened to Dukyu. She had come out to look for Dukyu. So, her first stop was naturally Dukyu's lair. She knew that Dukyu's main purpose for coming back this time was this place. Moreover, she was also very curious about Dukyu's secret lair. No one had ever set foot in it, therefore, Jun Shiju had come all the way here for many reasons. Who would have thought that she would run into two little hoodlums teasing her as soon as she arrived at Dukyu's lair? This had made Jun Shiju angry and amused at the same time. Especially that whistle, it sounded one after another as if it was urging them to die, and it did not stop. Jun Shiju became angry in her heart. She wanted to teach them a lesson. But, she came over to take a look, and found that they were acquaintances. They were the husbands of the two big clans of the three heavens. Jun Shiju had wanted to scare them off with a glare. But, she hadn't even gotten the time to open her mouth when these two well-known mischievous guys had begun to blow their own trumpet. They had even started to flirt with each other. They are writing chapters and poems? Jun Shiju gloomily looked at the two of them. Luo Kudi, do you know how to write chapters? Jimo, do you know how to write poems? Luo Kudi and Jimo trembled in an instant. Luo Kudi wiped his sweat. His head was steaming hot in such a cold weather. He cut a sorry figure. Jun, 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 forgive me. Cough cough cough. We were also, hey, just joking, joking. Luo Kudi wiped his sweat under Jun Shiju's increasingly cold gaze. The more he spoke, the more powerless he became. In the end, he couldn't continue. Don't be angry, monarch. He. Don't be angry, monarch. Don't be angry. This. Jimo rolled his eyes. He. Everyone loves beauty. This. What are you talking about? Jun Shiju got angry in an instant. She flew over, and lifted Luo Kudi up. Then, she punched second young master Luo's lower abdomen with a puff sound. She then kicked second young master Luo to the ground. Then, she stepped on his chest, and asked with a ferocious look on her face, have you seen Dukyu? Luo Kudi and Jimo looked at each other. They immediately felt relieved. Yes. Where? He's inside. He hasn't come out yet. We're waiting for him here. The two of them rushed to answer. This woman was too scary. Is it here? Jun Shiju heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that nothing had happened. When he turned around and saw the two fellows, he was instantly enraged. Jun Shiju wasn't in a hurry since Dukyu was fine. So, she simply waited here for him to come out. She also wanted to teach these two fellows a lesson for taking liberties with women. She kicked second young Master Luo's body with a bang sound. He screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Luo ku di. Write a chapter for me. Hurry up. Don't you know how to write? You can even write a chapter for Aunt Guan. You're quite capable, you. Luo ku di's face looked bitter. Minister Jun, this, quickly write. Jun Shizhu angrily said, someone else will write a chapter for second young Master Luo if I don't see a complete chapter today. Moreover, it will be a sacrifice. Luo ku di was complaining in his heart. His chest had been stepped on, and it felt as if an entire mountain was pressing down on him. He couldn't even move his fingers. He helplessly rolled his eyes, and called out for help. Third brother, help me write an article. Jimo slowly turned around. He was preparing to run away. But he was fixed in place by Luo ku di's words. He lifted his foot, and got stuck in the air. This bastard. I'm about to escape. Aren't you pulling me down with you? I almost forgot. Jimo, can you compose a poem? Jun Shizhu squinted at Jimo. You have 3 steps to compose a poem. I will ask Luo ku di to write a sacrifice for you if you can't do it. Jimo screamed, and jumped up. He then burst into tears and said, Luo ku di, you bastard. I'm going to die because of you. Luo ku di was lying on the ground. He rolled his eyes up and down. Jimo, you go first. Jun Shizhu was so angry that she couldn't take it out on Luo ku di. So, the tip of her foot rubbed on Luo ku di's chest. Luo ku di's entire body trembled in an instant. Then, he shouted, Third brother, quickly compose a poem. Jimo spread out his hands. He was so miserable that he wanted to cry. I wouldn't have written a poem if I could compose a poem, right? Quickly write. Jun Shizhu's complexion changed. The coldness in her eyes became even denser. Are you taking liberties with me? Do you think I'm so easy to take liberties with? Jimo burst into tears. We didn't know that it was you. Cut the crap. Jun Shizhu's murderous aura burst out. I'll compose a poem. I'll compose a poem. Jimo stood stiffly. He frowned, and racked his brains. It's snowing heavily, in the sky, and fluttering. He unconsciously took a step forward, and recited the second sentence. The moon's great mountain whitens my waist, PFFF. Luo ku di's body trembled as he heard these 2 sentences. His face also turned red. It was rare for him to laugh even though he was being stepped on like this. You're still laughing? Jun Shizhu looked at him in astonishment. Second young Master Luo, you're very courageous. You're not afraid of death, Luo ku di's eyes turned white. I can't help it, how can this be called a fucking poem? Second Master Ji finally stuttered and recited the 3rd sentence at this time, to compose a poem in such a cold weather. He scratched his ears and cheeks, and thought for a long time. Then, he said, it's not bad. He then jumped up and down. Ha, finished. It's snowing heavily in the sky, and the moon's great mountain whitens my waist. To compose a poem in such a cold weather, isn't it bad? Jun Shizhu twisted her slender eyebrows. What kind of bullshit is this? You only said that you want to compose a poem. You didn't say anything about the standard. Jimo straightened his neck and argued with reason. He couldn't not argue. After all, he would die if Jun Shizhu insisted that he compose another poem. This poem is the most rhyming poem I've ever composed since I was born. Fine. Jun Shizhu waved her hand. Get lost. I'll make your Ji clan prepare for a funeral if I see you taking liberties with a woman again. Jimo nodded and bowed. Yes. But, I'm already taken. Aobua is very good. I won't do it again. The key point is that Luo ku di is a rogue. He covered his head and fled like a rat. It was panicked like a stray dog, and busy like a fish escaping the net. Jimo, you pig. Luo ku di miserably lay on the ground and cursed loudly. He pounded the ground with his hands. He was extremely indignant. It's your turn. Jun Shizhu looked at Luo ku di and spoke in a cold voice. Let me see your talent. Luo ku di was so distressed that he wanted to die. Minister Jun, why don't you beat me up? Cut the crap. A cold light flashed, and a long sword was inserted into Luo ku di's crotch with a shua sound. It penetrated his clothes, and plunged into the snow below him. The sword's body swayed, and emitted a cold light. Ice cold. Luo Kudi's entire body shivered, and his hair stood on end. He could feel that the sword was slowly swaying in contact with his crotch, and his soul had flown out of his body. He suddenly felt that the watermark of setting sail was rushing to the front and back of his body. Spare my life. Second young master Luo shivered. Your Luo clan will have to rely on your elder brother Luo Ku Wu to carry on your ancestral line if you don't write a poem. Jun Shizhu insipidly said. I'll write. Luo Kudi readily agreed. Then, he frowned, and pondered. Title: Praise the Great Snow. Luo Kudi gasped for breath. Can you let me stand up? No. No. Praise the Great Snow. Praise the Great Snow. Luo Kudi's face was sullen. It seemed as if he had lost his parents. Luo Kudi obviously wanted to learn from Jimo's praise of the Great Snow. In the cold winter, heavy snow swirls in the air. Snowflakes fall fiercely, and the north wind blows fiercely. The weather is cold, and the ground is frozen. It's infinitely sad. Second young master Luo's talent was really good. Is the cold winter in your clan during the moon? Jun Shizhu snorted. It's the moon now. It's so cold here. Isn't it the cold winter? Luo Kudi rolled his eyes, and mumbled, I'm still naked in my clan at this time. Cut the crap. Continue. The weather is cold, and the ground is frozen. It's infinitely sad. The most miserable person is none other than me. Jimo is gone. That bad embryo. One day, he'll pull out my tendons and smash my marrow. Second young master Luo's speech became more and more fluent. He rolled his eyes. Among all the women in the world, the most beautiful confinement matron. She's devastatingly beautiful. She's capable of causing the downfall of a nation. She's scared away at first sight. Unfortunately, she's married. She sighs. The white snow poured into her mouth along with the wind. Second young master Luo got emotional because of the scenery. So, he returned to the original topic. It's cold and piercing to the bone. It's not beautiful. I'm in the northern icefield. I'm in bad luck. I'll never go back if I can. Ha 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 ha. Phut. Jun Shizhu was amused by him, and laughed. She then kicked this guy, and scolded him with a smile, get lost. I'll kill you if I see you taking liberties with women again. Hey. Luo Kudi crawled up. He didn't look back, and fled like a rat. His heart was thumping wildly. I've finally escaped with my life. My mother, it was too close. Who would have thought that my setting sail mother would have experienced such a terrifying thing? That ice-cold sword was stuck to that part of my body. My brother would have run away from home if I hadn't been careful. How could I have ignored my second brother? He thought about it, and thought about it. He was so scared that his lips had turned blue, and his face had turned white. But then, he suddenly burst into laughter. Ignored my second brother? Jiu Lao I'm really talented. Awu tilde, what did you say? Jiu Du Xing appeared in front of him with a murderous look on his face. He happened to hear Luo Kudi's muttering. Luo Kudi's legs went soft. His mind was still in chaos. So, he spoke without thinking. I was talking about my second brother. I can't ignore. Second brother Jiu, I'll beat you to death, you bastard. Jiu Du Xing and Dong Wushong had been called over by Jimo as reinforcements. They had rushed here with anxious hearts. But, they had seen this guy jumping around and mocking them. They had gotten angry when they heard these words. So, they had started to rain punches and kicks on him in a crazy manner. Luo Kudi was lying on the ground like a dried salted fish in less than a quarter of an hour. He was only exhaling, and no longer breathing. A white light flashed at this time, and a big door suddenly appeared. Chu Yang and Duke Yu had finally walked out. Second update. I'm going out to practice driving. I'll take the road test tomorrow morning. It's the 10th time. I'll lose face if I don't take it. Cough cough, I'll lose face already. I'll have nothing to do this month after tomorrow's test. Even if I have to take the makeup test, It'll be next month. Ooh, I'm such a jinx. Chapter 510. What's the matter? Why is it so messy? Duke frowned. He was very displeased. This is a secluded place for cultivation. How did it turn into a slaughterhouse? Then, he turned his head to look at Jun Shizhu. Why are you here? Someone from that family has come down, Jun Shizhu coldly snorted. Chu Yang hastily asked Shuo Duxing and the others while speaking, what's the matter? Baidu search networks high quality update ***, it's your two sworn brothers. Jun Shizhu replied. She coldly snorted and said, one is Luo Kudi, and the other is Ji Mo. They are taking liberties with women. And, they are taking liberties with me. This has never happened in the three heavens. Even Duke Yu's body swayed twice in an instant. As for Shuo Duxing and Dong Wushong, they were even more dizzy. They almost sat down on the snow-covered ground. They had been scared by this sentence. No wonder Ji Mo had patted his buttocks and shouted for help after he had returned. Then, he had said that something bad had happened, and that Luo Kudi was going to be slaughtered. But, he hadn't said anything. It's no wonder that they have taken liberties with women. They have become the overlords of the underworld of the three heavens. These two brothers are really, Shuo Duxing sighed. I understand. I wouldn't have said anything if it had been me. This isn't shameful anymore. Luo Kudi and Ji Mo lowered their heads. It seemed as if they had committed a great crime of deceiving the monarch. Their faces had turned into persimmons at this moment. One could see that Jun Shizhu hadn't wrongly accused them just by looking at their appearance. Really? Duke Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and sighed. Heroes come from the youth since ancient times. I admire you. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not being sarcastic. I truly admire you. At least, you've done something that I wouldn't have dared to do. Luo Kudi and Ji Mo's noses became crooked. Idols. Chu Yang grabbed their hands with tears in his eyes. You two have created an unprecedented precedent in the three heavens, big brother. Please don't say it. I feel like dying. Luo Kudi's face was bitter as he repeatedly pleaded. One said that he could compose a poem, and the other said that he could write a chapter. You guys are really treating me like a little girl to coax. Jun Shizhu rolled her eyes. Everyone felt as if they had been struck by lightning. One after another, they asked second young master Luo and second young master Ji what kind of poem they had written. The two of them directly stuck their heads into the crotch of their trousers, refusing to raise their heads no matter what. Go ahead and mock us all you want. We don't believe that you won't embarrass us in the future. Jun Shizhu restrained herself from laughing. She then read out the poem, Everyone Has a Big Belly. Du Xing and Dong Wushong were taking joy in other people's misfortune. In fact, they were laughing so hard that tears were almost flowing out of their eyes. Next, Duke Yu continued to bring Chu Yang to complete the bet. Jun Shizhu fished out a small booklet from her bosom, and handed it over to Mo Qingwu. This was what she wrote during this period of time. It was also one of the reasons why she came out this time besides looking for Duke Yu. Then, Jun Shizhu stood still. She stretched out her hand, and pointed her finger at Luo Kudi. Then, she pointed at Ji Mo. Then, she nodded again, and exposed a meaningful smile. Then, she rose up, and disappeared in the snowflakes that filled the sky. Luo Kudi and Ji Mo sat down on the snow-covered ground as soon as she left. They couldn't help but wipe their sweat. Then, they kept muttering, hot, this weather is really hot. Everyone looked at the ice under their feet, and the heavy snow in the sky. They were speechless. This is the White Crystal Mine. Duke Yu pointed at the sparkling white light in front of him and said. The two of them had already passed through a deep and long tunnel at this moment. They were 1,000 feet below the ground. White crystals were everywhere as far as the eye could see. They were piled up in large chunks. Some of them were still on the mountain walls, and hadn't been extracted yet. The more they went, the more they got. The calamity sword in his dantian trembled excitedly, and buzzed. Chu Yang was thoroughly stunned. He had thought that the white crystal mine that Dukyu had mentioned wasn't very big. In fact, it was only on such a small scale. Who would have thought that he would see a superlarge mineral vein at this moment? Moreover, all the white crystals could be seen at a glance. In fact, it wouldn't take much effort to extract them all. If it was calculated according to the size of a palm, the white crystals here would be tens of thousands of pieces, hundreds of thousands of pieces, millions of pieces, or even tens of millions. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. Dukyu smiled. His smile was still as carefree as before. He said, "You can stay here." "I understand." "Yes, I'll go out first. Tell them that you'll be in seclusion here. Then, we'll wait outside for you to come out." "Many thanks," Chu Yang said gratefully. Dukyu smiled faintly and said, "I'll also exchange pointers with them one by one. After all, I can't be a sparring partner for nothing." "Ha. Good." Dukyu smiled and turned to leave. "Brother Yu," Chu Yang called out. "Yes. Is there anything else?" Dukyu turned to look at him. "It's just a small token of appreciation. Please accept it, Brother Yu." Chu Yang held a piece of mysterious jade ice crystal core and a piece of mysterious young jade core in his hand. This was a world of difference compared to the two pieces that Dukyu had shamelessly taken away from him that day. "If you give me peaches and plums, I'll repay you with fine jade." Chu Yang was a person who never suffered losses. He clearly distinguished between gratitude and grudges. "As long as you treat me with sincerity, I'll treat you 100 times better. Even if I can't give you the same value, I'll do my best." Just like how he treated Xie Danqiong that day in the Xie clan. And like how he treated Dukyu today. In the Xie clan, it was because of benefits in the beginning. But it was no longer for benefits when Chu Yang gave Xie Danqiong the real jade flowers. Xie Danqiong knew this better than anyone else. It was a matter of friendship. And it was the same today. The reason why Chu Yang gave away the mysterious jade ice crystal core and the mysterious young jade core was because of Dukyu's friendship. Perhaps Dukyu had some ulterior motives in the end. But his help to Chu Yang at this stage was incomparable. Dukyu's eyes moved. He looked at Chu Yang deeply. But he didn't reach out his hand. Instead, he asked, "Why are you giving them to me?" He would rather go back on his word that day to take those two pieces. But he took a step back today when these two pieces of jade core were 10,000 times better than the one in front of him. There's no reason. If people respect me, I'll respect them tenfold. Chu Yang said seriously, "Brother Yu, I only treated you as a mysterious expert when I made the bet with you and argued with you before. As for the bet and promise, that's for strangers." He looked at Dukyu seriously and said, "But I'm giving these two pieces of jade to you now, because of friends." Chu Yang smiled gently, "So, this has nothing to do with the future or the promise of friendship, or anything else. It's just a token of my sincerity." Dukyu didn't seem to hear what Chu Yang had said. He only frowned and looked deeply into Chu Yang's eyes. He said softly, friend." Something seemed to flash in the depths of his eyes. Then, he put the two pieces of jade away. Very cautiously, he placed them into his bosom. He smiled faintly and said, "Maybe you'll regret the word friend one day. If Brother Yu doesn't regret it, I won't regret it either." Chu Yang smiled and said, "I'm afraid that I'll regret it." Dukyu laughed. "Even if you regret it, that's your business." Chu Yang said quietly, "Even if I regret it, that's my business." Dukyu murmured. He suddenly felt warm in his heart. "Even if you regret it, that's your business. What does it have to do with me? But I won't regret it. Even if we become enemies because of you in the future, I still won't regret what I've done today." These were the words that Chu Yang didn't finish speaking. Dukyu completely understood. Dukyu finally turned around and left without saying a word. His green robe fluttered and he disappeared in front of Chu Yang in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang watched him leave and a smile appeared on his face. Then, he turned around and stretched out his right hand. The three pieces of the Calamity sword suddenly appeared at his fingertip. In the next moment, the Calamity sword pierced the white crystal wall in front of him. It was clean and tidy, without the slightest hesitation. Time was of the essence. Besides, Chu Yang couldn't wait any longer. The silver crystal in front of him dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a while, the calamity sword flew up with a clang and began to advance forward like a hot knife through butter. Wherever it passed, the white crystal dimmed and turned into powder. 3 days later, the entire white crystal mine completely dimmed. The space inside became even bigger, and there was dust everywhere. The 3 pieces of the calamity sword all emitted a bright light. A faintly discernible spiritual energy rippled at the tip of the sword and stopped in the air, motionless. Suddenly, a strong light burst out, and then it immediately returned to its original state. Not long after, another wave of strong ghosts appeared. This cycle repeated. In a short time, it had already flashed more than 10 times. Finally, the calamity sword returned to its original state, as if there were no changes at all. The sword spirit said thoughtfully, "Improve it in all aspect. With the sun and moon ointment, you don't have to hold anything back." Oh! Chu Yang's spirit was immediately lifted. First, he threw the sun and moon ointment out. With a swoosh, the calamity sword pierced the sun and moon ointment. In an instant, the sun and moon ointment was absorbed into powder. Then, Chu Yang took out the precious materials that he had originally collected one after another. In the end, he directly put the calamity sword into the calamity space and let it absorb it by itself. The sword spirit immediately became very nervous. 3 days later, the calamity sword finished absorbing the existing resources. Except for the dozens of pieces of materials that Chu Yang had left behind to forge weapons, and the mysterious jade ice crystal and mysterious young jade that the sword spirit was desperately protecting, the calamity space was already empty. And, the sword spirit had also ripened a petal of the heavenly orchid. His aura had suddenly weakened a lot. But, a burst of black fog started to rise from his body after he took it. And, this black fog started to condense inside the sword spirit's body. His entire body had become very condensed by the time this black fog had completely condensed inside his body. This visual effect was more than 10 times stronger than before he took it. "It's really worth it." The sword spirit sighed deeply. He looked at his arms and legs with satisfaction and proudly shook them a few times. "What do we do now?" the sword spirit asked. "Immediately heal Qing Wu's 3-yin meridian," Chu Yang said unquestionably. As he spoke, he hurriedly walked out. And then immediately let the calamity sword refine elixirs to increase the strength of my brothers. Chu Yang said without hesitation, "Their current strength is too weak." Chapter 511. Why? Chu Yang was stunned and stopped. "Because your path is already different." The sword spirit became more serious than ever and said, "If you just want a group of strong fighters, you can improve them quickly. But, if you want everlasting brothers, it's best not to." "Why? Is it a good thing to improve their strength?" Chu Yang asked in confusion. Baidu search network's high-quality updates the fastest. In short, it's not good. The sword spirit replied, "My memory is sealed, so I can't say what's not good about it. But I can feel that it's best not to do it. The best way is to strengthen their foundation and improve their aptitude. Let them accumulate their strength step by step and reach the peak." "That's the right way," the sword spirit replied. "I'm risking my life by saying this, because, if you... I'll have to repeat the fate of the past 10,000 years." Chu Yang suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He looked up at the sword spirit. The sword spirit was tongue-tied and covered his mouth. Obviously, he knew that he had said something he shouldn't have. "Then I'll use the pills to strengthen their foundation." Chu Yang stared at the sword spirit for a long time before he said slowly. The sword spirit's face was full of joy and he nodded repeatedly. His warning this time could be said to be a huge risk. But this was the only hope he could feel, the hope of breaking free from the cycle of reincarnation, so the sword spirit didn't want to let it go. If Chu Yang really used pills to raise the strength of Jiyu Duxing and the others, it would be tantamount to letting the calamity sword unintentionally leave a mark in their hearts and divine sensei. In that way, Chu Yang would walk the same path as the previous masters of the sword. Chu Yang's face was calm, but his heart was in turmoil. I also want to repeat the fate of the past 10,000 years. The sword spirit's words made Chu Yang shudder. As soon as the calamity sword appeared, the world changed instantly. The masters of the heavens changed, and the great clans were annihilated and replaced by new great clans. Then, why was it a big clan and not the 5 big clans? And not the 10 big clans? Why was it a clan? Did this have anything to do with the sword? There was another point. Every time the sword appeared, it would hide in a different place for 10,000 years. In other words, it had been buried for 10,000 years. Then, how long did it take for the previous master of calamity sword to unify the first heaven? This period of time was definitely not very long, at most a few hundred years. However, the calamity sword returned to the body and was buried for another 10,000 years. Then, where did the master of the calamity sword go? As he thought of all these, Chu Yang felt a chill run down his spine, and a chill spread throughout his body. It was as if there was a huge net coming down on him from all directions. There was nowhere to run. It was as if the heavens had returned to fate, and the heavens had returned to order. The path of the calamity sword master was like the path of life. Baidu world defying heavens, no one can stop the spear in front of you. Whether you move or not, you will grow old. Whether you move or not, you will walk the path of the calamity sword master. You do things for yourself, for your own selfish interests. But all the things you do add up to unwittingly coincide with another path that God has already arranged for you. This was the will of heaven. When Chu Yang obtained the calamity sword, he encountered Mo Qingwu's death. He didn't want Mo Qingwu to die, so he could only reverse fate. To reverse fate, he had to go to Iron Cloud. When he went to Iron Cloud, he had to face Diwu Qingru. A war between the two countries, and tens of millions of lives would be lost. This was already in line with the path of the calamity sword master. In order to save Mo Qingwu, he needed to get the heavy pill. He needed to improve the calamity sword step by step. He had already reached this point. The upper 3 heavens was still waiting for him. Because Chu Yang's background and his parents were there. In his previous life, he didn't care about anything. But in this life, how could he not care about anything? So Chu Yang definitely had to go to the upper 3 heavens. Even if he had to turn back into powder, he still had to go. But as long as he went, he would be getting closer and closer to the path of the calamity sword. In other words, the path that God had set for Chu Yang was the path of the calamity sword master. It could be imagined that as life progressed step by step, what pushed Chu Yang forward was definitely not just a little bit. Thinking of all this, Chu Yang broke out in a cold sweat. He felt a chill run down his spine. Is it really irreversible? I thought that I had already reversed it, but it turns out that I had been following it for a long time. At this moment, a thought suddenly popped up in Chu Yang's mind. After saving Mo Qingwu, I'll live in seclusion with Mo Qingwu, and not care about worldly affairs. Is it inevitable? Chu Yang's heart was heavy as he walked back from the white crystal mine. When he saw Jiyu Duxing and the others, the heaviness on Chu Yang's face was still clearly visible. His thoughts still didn't stop. The sword spirit in his mind was also silent. He didn't dare to make a sound to disturb him. Boss. Luo Kedi wanted to cry but had no tears. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. These 4 brothers of his were no longer in human form. Even people with strong perseverance like Jiyu Duxing and Dong Wushang were already exhausted from Dukyu's training. When they met again, Chu Yang almost couldn't recognize who was who. Dukyu's sparring was indeed very good and powerful. It was a complete and utter abuse. However, under such torture, Luo Kedi and Jimo's cultivation improved very quickly. They were already at the point of breaking through. Jiyu Duxing and Dong Wushang had already broken through. Jiyu Duxing was now a 4th grade sword king. Dong Wushang was now a 4th grade saber king. The little girl Mo Qingwu was holding the booklet that Jun Shizhu had given her. She was carefully studying it. When she saw Chu Yang return, she put the booklet in her bosom and jumped over. These guys are very malleable. Dukyu was full of praise. He had squeezed out all the potential of Jiyu Duxing, Dong Wushang, and the others in his own unique way. The more he squeezed them out, the more amazed Jukyu became. It was simply inconceivable that ordinary people could have such potential. Have you finished refining the pills? Chuyang asked in his mind. Yes, a total of 10 spirit transformation pills. Sword Spirit replied, taking this pill won't have the special effect of increasing one's cultivation. But, it can enhance the potential of the person who takes it. It can make their martial arts foundation more outstanding. Moreover, it can make their meridians more bearable. Moreover, it contains the power of enlightenment of the heavenly way. It can increase the possibility of making a breakthrough as long as they have the opportunity. Sword Spirit replied, this pill is the mildest among all the similar pills. Chuyang nodded and said, that's good. Then, he called Jiyu Duxing and the others to take one pill each. Then, he introduced the effects of the pill to the 4 people in detail. Jiyu Duxing and the others were dumbstruck. There's such a miraculous medicine in the world. Chuyang then said to Jukyu, Brother Yu, I'll have to trouble you for a few days. Train them well to spread the efficacy of the pill. You should have more experience than us in this aspect. So, you should pay attention to the fact that the medicinal efficacy must spread to every meridian, every muscle, and even the brain. So, we need an expert like Brother Yu to personally check it. Jukyu laughed out loud, this is no problem. I'll make sure that they don't waste even a little bit of it. Ha 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 ha. I want to die. How many more days? Luoku Di and Ji Mo screamed at the same time. They looked at each other in dismay. They wanted to cry, but had no tears. They had been turned into mud by Jukyu in the past few days. How many more days would it take? That spirit beast hasn't made any movements during this time, right? Chuyang asked. Chuyang was still somewhat concerned about this matter. No. Well, someone had encountered a wind fox a few nights ago. But, that thing was too fast. So, it was as if it didn't appear. Later, a few corpses were found. The unstoppable spear of pride in the heavens died under the sharp claws of a fire lion. It seems that not only is there a spirit beast here, but there's more than one. Jukyu's spirit was very excited as he said, as long as we can confirm that this thing really exists, I'll be relieved. There's no need to rush. Besides, how can a spirit beast be so easy to deal with? Good. If possible, we'll take action. Chuyang nodded affirmatively and said, then, I'll go take care of something first. As he said this, he picked up Mo Ching-woo and went back in the direction of the white crystal or vein. To heal Mo Ching-woo, he needed an absolutely quiet place. Only a place like the white crystal or vein would be warm enough, and he wouldn't have to worry about being disturbed. Moreover, it was spacious enough. Seeing Chuyang leave, Jukyu clasped his hands behind his back and turned his head. He bared his teeth at the youngsters who had just taken the pill. He smiled maliciously, brothers, come. Jiyu Du Xing and Dong Wu Shong sighed at the same time. Luo Ku Di and Ji Mo lay flat on the snowy ground. Brother Chuyang, where are you taking me? Mo Ching Wu asked curiously. I'm taking you to a very fun place. Chuyang smiled slightly. Really? Of course, really. What are we going to do there? To treat your illness. Ah. Mo Ching Wu cried out in surprise. Then, she suddenly thought of something and became shy. She squeezed her little head into Chuyang's arms. What's wrong? Chuyang was surprised. I'm shy. Mo Ching Wu whispered. She was so shy that she couldn't speak. What are you shy about? Chuyang scratched his head in confusion. Why was this little loli so shy? My wound is on my chest. Mo Ching Wu pouted and said, Brother Chuyang, you're taking advantage of me. Chuyang staggered as he was running. He lost his footing on the glacier, and slid down. Then, he fell on his back. His 2 buttocks were caught off guard, and broke into 8 pieces as a result. Chuyang got up and looked at the little girl in his arms. He was speechless. How old is this little girl? She's already thinking of this. Brother Chuyang, don't worry. Don't be surprised. Mo Ching Wu blushed. She moved closer to his ear and said, I don't mind. Really? If it was someone else, I would rather die than let him see me. the little girl said resolutely and decisively. She then added, "It's just that I haven't grown up yet. It's just starting to grow. Brother Chu Yang, please don't dislike it." Chu Yang's face darkened. He picked her up and ran away. "Heavens, please strike me with lightning and kill me, this beast." Mo Qingwu shyly nestled in his arms and whispered, "It will grow up in the future." Chu Yang stumbled again. "Spare me. Boo-hoo-hoo." Chapter 512. Not long after, the mentally exhausted Chu Yang finally arrived at the White Crystal Mine with Mo Qingwu in his arms. His body flashed, and he entered the mine through the secret passage that Duke Yu had dug. They went all the way to the underground. **** Baidu Search Network High Quality Update **** What a spacious underground cave. Mo Qingwu opened her big eyes wide as she exclaimed in surprise. Chu Yang shook his hand, and 3 luminous pearls were embedded in the stone wall. Suddenly, the entire area was softly illuminated. Then, Chu Yang casually waved his hand, and a large flat stone that he had already prepared was cleaned. Then, he took out some bedding from the tribulation space, and laid it on top of it. "Come, Qingwu, take off your clothes, and lie on top of it." Chu Yang waved his hand, and suddenly thought of something. He took out a few pieces of mysterious young jade from the tribulation space, and spread them around. Suddenly, the entire space became warm and comfortable. "I really have to take off my clothes." Mo Qingwu's small face turned red. Her 2 small hands tightly grasped the front of her clothes, and her eyes moved around. "Brother Chu Yang, you are so naughty." Chu Yang sweated profusely. "I am naughty? Little girl, it will take a few years for me to be naughty. Your current body, even if I want to be naughty, it will be quite difficult. Hurry up." Chu Yang had no choice but to put on a serious face. "Humph." The little girl came over slowly. She looked at Chu Yang from the corner of her eyes as she walked. Then, her 2 small hands began to untie her belt. She took off her overcoat, and then the small leather jacket, and then the small leather waistcoat, and then the small cotton-padded jacket, and then the small cotton waistcoat, and finally, the small bellaband. There were more than 10 layers. Only a small red bellaband was left on her upper body. It wrapped around her snow-white skin, and the little girl covered her chest with her hands. Chu Yang sighed. "This small chest is just beginning to pop out. It can't even be considered as the tip of a lotus flower. A slightly chubby boy is probably bigger than this little girl here, and she is still so nervous that she doesn't want to let me see it. Are you done?" Mo Qingwu asked timidly. "Take it off." Chu Yang said with black lines on his forehead. "Ah, so shy." Mo Qingwu covered her face. "Let me do it, let me do it." Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I'll do it myself." The little girl nimbly jumped up, kicked off her little leather boots, and jumped onto the bed. She even stretched out her petal-like little feet in front of Chu Yang, and said triumphantly, "Elder brother Chu Yang, smell it. Mine doesn't stink." "Hey." Chu Yang couldn't help but look at his feet. In fact, he was also depressed. He already had an innate constitution, and all the impurities in his body had already been expelled. Why did he still have the problem of foot odor? This shouldn't be happening. When he came back to his senses, he saw that the little girl had already taken off her doo-doo. Her upper body was bare and she was lying on the specially made bed. Her 2 small hands were nervously covering her small breasts, which didn't have the slightest bit of size. Alas. Chu Yang sighed. He reached out and took her right hand away, then looked at the place where she had been injured. There was only a dark red mark left. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. This was only possible because the little girl had been constantly exhausting her physical strength during this period of time. Otherwise, there would be no such thing. Feeling Chu Yang's warm hand touching her body, Mo Qingwu tightly closed her eyes. Her small body also became perfectly straight. He looked like he was overly nervous. Chu Yang was both angry and amused. He really didn't know what this little girl was nervous about. At his command, the calamity sword moved instantly. A stream of pure medicinal power was instantly injected into Mo Qingwu's body from his palm. The sword spirit in his mind rubbed his hands together. A stream of mysterious spiritual power poured out from Chu Yang's consciousness and merged with the medicinal power of the Calamity Sword. Chu Yang reached out his left hand and there was an amethyst box. With a push of his thumb, the lid of the box opened with a snap. A fragrance immediately wafted out. It was the heavy pill, ready at any time. The tip of the Calamity Sword let out a long cry. Suddenly, it escaped from Chu Yang's fingertips and turned into a stream of light, drilling into Mo Qingwu's meridians. Mo Qingwu only felt that her body was getting hotter and hotter. In the end, her chest was already scorching hot. A kind of heart-wrenching pain suddenly rose. Instantly, she frowned in pain and groaned painfully from her throat. This kind of feeling was even more painful than when he was struck by the sword, and this kind of pain was gradually getting worse. Chu Yang stared intently, only to see a pink scar slowly bulging on Mo Qingwu's chest. Gradually, her entire chest seemed to be filled with a transparent red light, and even Mo Qingwu's internal organs could be vaguely seen. It hurts. Big brother Chu Yang. Mo Qingwu frowned in pain. Her eyes glistened with tears. She pursed her lips and looked at Chu Yang pitifully. It's okay. Bear with it. Little Wu is the strongest. Bear with it and you'll be fine. You can practice martial arts in the future. Chu Yang comforted her gently. Mo Qingwu perked up. Yes. I want to practice martial arts. I want to protect big brother Chu Yang. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. She said it didn't hurt, but slowly, she clenched her teeth and didn't make a sound. Sweat the size of soybeans kept coming out of her face and body. Chu Yang's heart ached as he watched, but there was nothing he could do. He didn't dare to urge her to hurry up, right now. Mo Qingwu's scar finally appeared. It completely bulged out of her skin and floated on the surface. Chu Yang was about to feed the heavy pill to this little girl immediately. Wait. The sword spirit stopped him. The sword spirit's spiritual power had been constantly outputting. So, he seemed a little tired at this moment. Why? Chu Yang asked. How far do you want this little girl to go? The sword spirit asked in a heavy voice. If you want to repair her 3 yin meridians, now is the right time. If you want to improve her constitution, now is not the right time. Improve her constitution? Chu Yang frowned. Since ancient times, women have practiced martial arts faster than men, especially for men and women with the same qualifications. Women are faster than men. Therefore, women's constitution may be weak, but their endurance is better than men's. You can't not know this, the sword spirit said. Chu Yang slowly nodded. If you look at it from this point of view, this phenomenon is also true. But once a woman reaches a certain age, she will be shackled by the congenital shackles. And, she will slowly lose these advantages after marriage. The sword spirit slowly said, there are several kinds of peerless constitutions for women. With such constitutions, practicing any martial arts will yield twice the results with half the effort. If you have a suitable martial art, you can even advance 1,000 miles in a day. For example, your senior sister Wu Qian of the lower 3 heavens has the mysterious yin female body, but Mo Qingwu is born with the 3 yin meridians. You must know that if the 3 yin meridians are improved, it will be recognized as the #1 constitution in the world. It will be stronger than the mysterious yin female body, the sword spirit said heavily. What kind of constitution? Chu Yang asked nervously. Heavenly yin body, innate spirit meridians. The sword spirit said these words almost word by word. Heavenly yin body, innate spirit meridians? Chu Yang asked in puzzlement. This was the first time he had heard of such a constitution. Have you seen Duke Yu's constitution? The sword spirit snorted. You mean? Chu Yang asked in surprise. Yes. This heavenly yin body and innate spirit meridians are strange constitutions on par with Duke Yu's innate spirit body. Even if you find a suitable martial art, it will be stronger than Duke Yu's constitution. Because its original body is female. The sword spirit snorted and said, moreover, it was transformed by the heavenly law of the Calamity Sword. The transformation of the heavenly law of the universe is the power of the universe. Although Duke Yu's aptitude is special, it's only the power of his race. How can it be compared with the power of the heavenly law? The sword spirit said with a smile full of temptation. Besides, now is an important time to repair the 3 yin meridians. If you miss this opportunity, there won't be a second possibility. Even if you suffer the same injury again, after being healed by the calamity sword this time, there won't be any hope for you to form the heavenly yin body again. That's why I asked you to think about it. Let's do it. Chu Yang made a prompt decision. Heavenly yin body, innate spirit meridians. This was Mo Qingwu's great fortune. Since there was such an opportunity, how could Chu Yang miss it? The stronger Mo Qingwu was, the safer she would be. However, she will have to suffer more pain. The sword spirit said slowly. It's better to have a short pain than a long pain. Chu Yang's eyes shone with heartache, but he didn't hesitate. Let's start immediately. Okay. The sword spirit agreed and immediately informed the calamity sword's sword tip. The calamity sword's sword tip suddenly flashed in Mo Qingwu's body and instantly turned into thousands of fragments, penetrating Mo Qingwu's entire body. Even the unique light of the calamity sword was flashing above Mo Qingwu's head. Mo Qingwu couldn't clench her teeth anymore. She groaned in pain and spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at Chu Yang helplessly. Her originally bright eyes were already dead gray. Chu Yang. Brother, it's okay. It'll be okay soon. Chu Yang held this small body in his arms with heartache. He pressed his face against her face and comforted her gently. Cough cough. Mo Qingwu coughed lightly and fainted. Hurry. Chu Yang couldn't help but roar. On Mo Qingwu's chest, the wound of the 3 yin meridians was already clearly visible. Chu Yang could even see with his naked eye how that sword had destroyed the innate meridians. The tiny meridians were quickly connected together under the star-like sword light. Like thousands of bent threads, they were easily cut by the calamity sword's sword tip. Finally, that horrifying wound slowly disappeared. Mo Qingwu's entire body, from the top of her head to the soles of her feet, suddenly shone with the luster of starlight. At first glance, it seemed that all the starlight in the entire universe had been transferred to this little girl's body, which was as white as a lotus flower. This is the moment. Take the heavy pill. Hurry. The sword spirit shouted in his mind. Chapter 5:13. Chu Yang didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly brought the purple crystal bottle close to Mo Qingwu's mouth. But Mo Qingwu had already fainted. She clenched her teeth tightly. The heavy pill couldn't enter. **** Baidu search network's high quality updates the fastest ***. Chu Yang frowned. Without any hesitation, he circulated his energy. His energy formed a vacuum energy shield around his mouth. Then, he put the heavy pill into his mouth. He leaned forward and used the tip of his tongue to gently pull back Mo Qingwu's teeth. The tip of his tongue moved back and forth agilely on Mo Qingwu's soft lips. Then, he slowly opened them. Mo Qingwu originally closed her mouth tightly and clenched her teeth. But she felt that there seemed to be something moving gently on her mouth. There was a comfortable itch. She couldn't help but gently open her mouth. Chu Yang took the opportunity to fiercely push the tip of his tongue and finally pushed the heavy pill into her mouth. He finally heaved a sigh of relief. But at this moment, an accident happened. Although Mo Qingwu was unconscious, she instinctively realized that something had entered her mouth. She subconsciously closed her teeth. Ouch! Chu Yang cried out miserably. His voice was dull and unclear. His tongue was bitten by Mo Qingwu's sharp teeth. Minister Chu was in trouble. He was in front of the little girl. His tongue was stretched out, and was bitten. His whole body was sweating. He wanted to pull it out bit by bit. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. I can't circulate any energy in this place. But Mo Qingwu was biting very tightly. The little girl closed her mouth and clenched her teeth. She was very determined. Minister Chu sighed repeatedly in his heart. He could only slowly try to pull it out, but it didn't work. So, he endured the pain and moved the tip of his tongue back and forth in the little girl's mouth. Mo Qingwu indeed felt that her mouth was unbearably itchy. She unconsciously loosened her mouth. Ouch! Chu Yang finally rescued his tongue. He only felt pain. He stuck his tongue out and touched it with his hand. Blood. What's wrong with intercepting a drink from the proud melon-hand cold Tinglu? This little girl is quite strong. Minister Chu stuck his tongue out and looked back with a bitter face. The sword spirit clearly knew that he shouldn't laugh at this critical juncture. However, he still couldn't help but convulse with laughter. The heavy pill entered her mouth, and immediately transformed into countless pure spiritual powers, which rushed towards Mo Qingwu's body in all directions. Then, the specks of starlight on Mo Qingwu's body suddenly flourish. The range of the starlight's illumination seemed to have shrunk the entire universe, and all of it was concentrated on Mo Qingwu. When a person returns to his body, he becomes a universe of his own. Can you tell? The sword spirit said lightly. This sentence is absolutely not said casually. Chu Yang looked at the starlight on Mo Qingwu's body, and imagined the starry sky in his memory. It's true that the reincarnation of the human body is a universe of its own, but without the power of the heavenly Tao, no one can activate its true use. The sword spirit replied, therefore, since ancient times, countless powerful people and wise people have been pursuing the heavenly Tao. A lot of people are pursuing the heavenly echo Tao, but they don't know what it is for. There are even more people who think that the heavenly echo Tao is just a form of power, the sword spirit said disdainfully, but the real pursuit of the heavenly echo Tao is just to activate the universe of the heavenly echo Tao. Let this person be self-sufficient, and from then on, transcend the heavenly echo Tao and transcend the cycle of reincarnation. This is the real nirvana realm. What's after the nirvana realm? Chu Yang said deeply, who can guarantee that this so-called nirvana realm is not another beginning? Or, it's just a beginning? The sword spirit was startled. He said, this makes sense. After a moment of silence, he pondered over Chu Yang's words. Suddenly, he said loudly, this sentence makes a lot of sense. Then, he continued to ponder. As the heavy pill entered her body, Mo Qingwu only felt that her whole body was light and floating. The originally indescribable pain seemed to have disappeared. She woke up with a moan. She only felt that her body was incomparably comfortable. The wound on her chest, which was originally hurting faintly, was now very comfortable. There was no pain at all. Her whole body was so light that it was as if she was about to fly. She was overjoyed. She turned over and was about to sit up. Chu Yang gently held her down and said vaguely, don't stare, brother. Chu Yang, reply to brother. The little girl stared with her big round eyes. What are you talking about? What's wrong with your tongue turning back? Bo, move. The sea is digging again. Don't move, it's not over yet. Chu Yang turned his head with his tongue wide open. He hissed and sucked in cold air. He used a little strength to tell the little girl, don't move. Oh. The little girl blinked and lay back down obediently. She was full of concern. Brother Chu Yang, reply to brother, your tongue turning back? Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. My tongue turning back? Didn't you bite my tongue when it turned back? Do you think it's easy for me? I almost broke off and became a mute. The timid girl immediately changed her line of sight. Ah, why are there so many stars on my body? So beautiful. So beautiful. Finally, the starlight on Mo Qingwu's body slowly receded. Her skin gradually returned to its original soft and tender state. The whiteness returned to its redness. It was extremely delicate and tender. Well, you can let go now. The sword spirit reminded, the little girl needs to eliminate some things now. What things? Chu Yang was speaking in his mind. So, it naturally had nothing to do with the tongue turning back. He hadn't finished speaking when he saw the little girl's face suddenly turn red. Her eyebrows wrinkled. Her two legs were also forcefully pressed together. She looked at him with some shame and indignation in her eyes. Her voice seemed to have been squeezed out from her throat. I want. Chu Yang was startled. He quickly let go. The little girl's movements were extremely fast. She jumped up from the bed like an arrow and rushed out naked. Chu Yang touched his nose. Then, he heard a voice from afar. Cough cough. A long time passed. The little girl's low and delicate voice was heard. Brother Chu Yang, reply to brother, what's the matter? I didn't bring that. Mo Qingwu was extremely embarrassed. I didn't bring any cleaning products to the toilet. But, there's no other way. That feeling is really too urgent. Chu Yong laughed out loud. Baidu world defying heavens bar provided by unstoppable spear, the little girl suddenly became embarrassed. Quickly give me some. Boo-hoo, Chu Yong hurriedly sent it over. After a long time, the little girl rushed over like a gust of wind. Chu Yong only saw her fair and tender body turn around in a flash. The little girl had already grabbed her clothes and desperately put them on one by one. Her pretty face turned red. Chu Yong laughed evilly. Let you wear it. You might as well not wear it. Sure enough, not long after, Mo Qingwu's stomach growled again. Her expression changed. In an instant, she ran out like a gust of wind again. After running 5 times in a row, she leaned into Chu Yong's arms, exhausted. Her face was pale. She said weakly, Brother Chu Yong, reply to brother. This diarrhea is really bad. Is this diarrhea? You're cleansing your meridians and marrow. Chu Yong sighed. Sigh. Mo Qingwu sighed. She was very depressed. What's wrong? Chu Yong asked. During this period, he had already applied medicine on the wound on the back of his tongue. It felt much cooler. He could also speak in a way that others could understand. I kept laughing at Brother Chu Yong for having smelly feet. Now, I've made Brother Chu Yong smelly to death. Mo Qingwu pouted and said very shamelessly. Ha ha ha. Chu Yong couldn't help but kiss the little girl back and rub her hair. Finally, Mo Qingwu's injury was healed. Chu Yong was in a very good mood now. But the little girl kept pouting. Even when she heard that her injury was healed, she didn't show much joy. This made Chu Yong very puzzled. Qingwu, what's wrong with you? Woo woo. The moment he asked that question, the little girl threw herself into his arms and started crying. Chu Yong was shocked. Homesick? No. Mo Qingwu cried for a while. Then, she said, boo-hoo. Mother said that a girl's body should be as pure as ice and as pure as jade. She shouldn't let any man see it, but you, Brother Chu Yong, you saw everything. Boo-hoo tilde Chu Yong was petrified. What should I do? Boo-hoo. The little girl was very sad. She sobbed and said, Brother Chu Yong, you'll take responsibility, right? Ah. Chu Yong's eyebrows jumped twice. It seemed as if he had just woken up from a dream. I'll take responsibility. I'll take responsibility. He wiped his cold sweat. This Mo clan's upbringing is really valiant. Such a little girl has already started to force others to take responsibility for her. The little girl continued to sob. She proudly raised her eyebrows in a place where Chu Yong couldn't see. She touched the small booklet that Jun Shizhu had given her in her pocket. It didn't only contain Jun Shiju's Zhenghu experience as the overlord of the underworld. It also contained many body techniques, sword techniques, and some reflections. Of course, the thing that attracted the little girl the most wasn't this aspect. Instead, it was Jun Lulu's introductory education. Jun Lulu liked this little girl very much. She also thought that Mo Qingwu had run away from home at such a young age. She would inevitably suffer if no one taught her some things about being a girl. Therefore, this Scyther master, who had a maternal instinct, wrote several pages in great detail. It was densely packed, and taught Mo Qingwu the ways of being a girl. In particular, she wrote the most about being on guard against men. And so on and so forth. However, this Scyther master had never dreamt that this how to guard against men that she had painstakingly written would become Mo Qingwu's guide to bathing in the sun. In particular, don't stay away, refuse but still welcome, keep your distance, and so on. Mo Qingwu had done the opposite with Chu Yong. Humph, Brother Chu Yong is mine anyway. The little girl proudly thought in her heart. Chu Yong began to test the little girl in the next few days. Then, he explained some things to her. He also checked the condition of her body while he was at it. Moreover, the meridian and marrow cleansing was still going on. 8 days had passed by the time the two of them finally went out. Almost all the people of the aristocratic clans had rushed to the northern wilderness. And, a low-level green rainbow blood snake had been chased a few days ago. It was said that it had been seriously injured. Duke Yu had already brought Jiyu Duxing and the others to chase after it. Only a king-level expert of the Jiyu clan was left behind to wait for Chu Yang and inform him of the news. Chu Yang heard that there was no time to lose. He immediately pulled Mo Qingwu in the direction that the king-level expert had pointed out. Two figures came back. One had a tall and handsome figure, and the other had a petite and exquisite figure. They were like two cool breezes that blew across the ice field. In the sky above the two of them, there was a figure coming from afar. This person was very impressive. In the sky full of snow, it was as if he didn't affect a single snowflake at all. He floated in the air and floated over. His speed was extremely fast. He saw Chu Yang on the snow-covered ground at a glance. This person's gaze froze. He smiled and said to himself, such a young age, but such a quick and nimble agility. But he didn't take it seriously. He swept over the two of them. Chu Yang didn't feel anything. But this person suddenly exclaimed after he flew over. He muttered, something is wrong with that little girl. He turned around, and turned around again. Chapter 5:14. Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu moved forward as light as a feather. Mo Qingwu's injuries were healed. Both of them were in the happiest moment. Both of them felt as light as a feather along the way. Especially Mo Qingwu. After walking for a while and activating her blood meridians, she felt as light as a swallow. It seemed that her strength was increasing with every passing moment. Her body became more and more flexible. Her spiritual power was increasing constantly. Her whole body felt more and more comfortable. After walking at a high speed for a while, her whole body began to heat up. Steam came out of her body. Chu Yang wanted her to adapt to her body in the shortest time possible. So, he sped up and let her catch up on her own. Mo Qingwu's competitive spirit was aroused. She chuckled as she flew up and passed by. Above the two of them, the mysterious expert's eyes became more and more satisfied. He muttered to himself, the heat on the top of your head has a yin color. You actually have the 3 yin meridians. This kind of constitution is rare. Mo Qingwu chased after him. Her face was full of joy. After running for 50 miles, she actually caught up with him. Her face was full of pride. But at this moment, she suddenly staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. This mouthful of blood was solid. It was purple-black and solidified. It fell on the snow, but didn't splash. Instead, it condensed together like a mass of paste. Chu Yang was shocked. In his mind, the sword spirit let out a long sigh of relief. He said, this is great. This heavenly yin body and innate spirit meridians are finally connected with this mouthful of blood. Chu Yang replied with an "oh" and opened his eyes to look. He saw Mo Qingwu looking at the mouthful of blood in panic. She was a little panic-stricken. But her face was rosy and there was nothing unusual. Then, she walked 2 steps. She seemed to be lighter than before. Mo Qingwu was surprised. How could there be no hindrance after vomiting blood? She tried to jump and run for a distance. Then, she looked up in confusion. Brother Chu Yang, what's going on? Why don't I feel uncomfortable after vomiting blood? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, there's a problem with your constitution. After vomiting this mouthful of blood, you don't feel uncomfortable anymore. I feel the same. Mo Qingwu smiled and tilted her head. She blinked and said happily, Brother Chu Yang, I feel very strange. Strange? Yes. The little lowly happily somersaulted on the ground and said, Elder Brother Chu Yang, I suddenly feel that this world is very intimate and warm. I feel as if you are hugging me while walking in this world. Hey! Chu Yang was also puzzled. There's such a feeling? Yes. The little lowly happily spread out her hands and spun in a circle, saying, I can feel the spiritual energy between heaven and earth automatically flowing into my body. Hey! This feeling is really good. Then, she extended her fair and tender little hands as if she was presenting a treasure. Her pretty eyes glanced at Chu Yang. Elder Brother Chu Yang, quickly come and see. Chu Yang moved closer, and couldn't help but widen his eyes. As soon as Mo Qingwu started to circulate her martial arts, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth seemed to have received an order, and rushed to gather towards Mo Qingwu's fair and tender little hands. In an instant, 2 pillars of spiritual energy were formed above her 2 fair and tender little hands, and almost became her second nature. Moreover, this pillar of spiritual energy was drilling into Mo Qingwu's meridians at a speed visible to the naked eye. Haha. What's going on? Chu Yang wasn't laughing. Instead, it was an unconscious sound that came out of his throat. I don't know either. Mo Qingwu happily waved her hand, and the spirit energy pillar dispersed with a bang. Then, she beckoned with her hand, and the dispersed spirit energy above her palm suddenly gathered together again. Then, it turned into a hazy lotus flower. Waha! The little loli danced with joy. I know how to do trick. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. The old man in the sky almost fell down with a somersault. The old man's eyes widened as he watched the spirit energy lotus flower, little bird pillar, and other transformations taking place in the little girl's palm. Slowly, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His breathing also became hurried, and his eyes immediately turned red. What did I see? What did I see? The old man's hands trembled, and his face looked like he was about to cry. What exactly did I see? In this world, there is actually such a constitution. By the time the old man came back to his senses, the big and small below had already become 2 small dots in the snow, and walked far away. The old man stopped in midair. He stood there in a daze for a long time, and suddenly, he opened his mouth and sucked in a breath of cold air with a hiss. All the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from all directions seemed to be sucked in by his mouth. Suddenly, a spiritual energy storm was formed. In the distance, Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu suddenly felt a little suffocated, and for a moment, they actually had difficulty breathing. It was as if the spiritual energy in this area had suddenly disappeared. Both of them were greatly surprised, and endured this uncomfortable feeling until they ran for a while more before they felt that their breathing was smooth. What happened just now? Chu Yang was puzzled. He looked back, and all he could see was the boundless world, and nothing could be seen. It was really strange just now. Mo Qingwu also asked. The two of them looked at each other, and then smiled. They didn't even know. Mo Qingwu jumped and hugged Chu Yang's neck. Big brother Chu Yang, I'm tired, carry me and run. Okay. Chu Yang laughed, and picked up this weak and boneless body, and flew all the way. Both of them didn't know that all this was caused by someone who couldn't control his emotions and took a deep breath. This old man's unintentional breath actually sucked up all the spiritual energy within a radius of thousands of feet. It turned this vast area into a vacuum. What kind of cultivation was this? But this old man with such a terrifying cultivation was already scared out of his wits by what he saw. Even after a long time, he was still muttering to himself, my God. My earth. My God. What did I see? Heavenly yin body. Innate spirit meridians. My eyes are blurry. He was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses. I'll catch up and take a look again. He did as he said, and with a kick of his feet in the air, he suddenly disappeared. Behind him, there was actually a long vacuum tunnel. The sound of a fierce fight was faintly heard from the front of the snowstorm. A clear whistling sound was heard, and it turned into a thunderclap in this snowstorm. It was Dukyu's voice. Then, a long whistle was heard. It was full of energy, and wasn't inferior to Dukyu's. But, the voice was clear and gentle. It was a woman's voice. It was Jun Shizhu. Then, a loud shout was heard. It shook the area within a radius of 100 miles. Chu Yang took a deep breath. So, this big sister of the Three Heavens underworld is so awesome. It seems that she isn't inferior to Dukyu. He walked closer, and saw that many people had formed a big circle. Almost all of these people were king-level experts. Jiyu Du Xing and the others were also here. In addition, the people of several big clans were also here. Everyone was nervously looking at the scene. The people of the Meng clan were in a remote corner. The people of the Meng clan couldn't take advantage of Dukyu after Chu Yang had sent a message to him. They could only fight recklessly in the open. However, their strength wasn't enough to fight recklessly. Therefore, they could only stay on one side and wait to get a share of the leftovers. Moreover, their original purpose was only to obtain a few drops of the spirit beast's blood. 3 figures were entangled in a whirlwind in the field. One of them was graceful and elegant. But her attacks were ruthless. Her attacks were as heavy as a mountain. Her black clothes were fluttering, and her long hair was fluttering. She was Jun Shizhu. The other person's black clothes were fluttering in the wind. He seemed to be handling a butcher's cleaver with ease even though he was in such a fierce battle. In fact, it seemed as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Every move of his didn't carry the slightest bit of anger. It was Duke Yu. It turned out that the two leaders of the dark bamboo were attacking the spirit beast. No wonder the others didn't dare to intervene. Who in the three heavens would dare to snatch something that the dark bamboo wanted? So many king-level experts of the aristocratic clans had gathered here in the three heavens. And they only wanted the blood of the spirit beast that would drip from the body of Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu. As for the core of the spirit beast, they didn't even dare to think about it. The target of Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu's attack was a blood-red viper. This snake should be the green rainbow blood snake, Chu Yang muttered. Mo Qingwu looked at the field with her black eyes. She stuck out her tongue and said, "This snake is very ugly." This viper was only about 10 feet long. Its entire body was covered with blood-red scales. It had 3 heads, and looked ferocious and dreadful. It had 2 strange claws under its lower abdomen. And its tail was a powerful weapon. It almost never landed on the ground. It was fighting in the air. Its eyes were full of impatience and malevolence. It was obvious that this snake was very helpless and angry at the fact that it had to face such an attack. One of the heads of this viper was constantly spurting out frost energy from its mouth. It was making a rustling sound. Even the air would briefly freeze wherever the frost energy passed. Then, it would shatter with a bang. The other head was constantly spewing out raging flames. Wherever the flames reached, the air would tremble and burn. The third head was stretching and shrinking. Every time it stretched and shrank, its neck would stretch for more than 100 feet in the blink of an eye. Its eerie white teeth were exposed, and a fishy smell filled the air. It would immediately retract if its attack didn't work. It would move like thunder, and as fast as lightning. Its flexible tail was constantly swinging. It was controlling its body's balance. It would occasionally attack, but it would also retract its attack. However, its might was shocking. Chu Yang saw this, and realized that he would have had no other choice but to meet it head-on if he had been within its attack range. He couldn't have evaded it. Green fog was unceasingly emitting from the body of this blood snake along with the battle. The snowflakes in the air had also been dyed green along with the rise of this green fog. The ground where the battle had taken place had turned into a gloomy green color. Many places had already corroded, and were riddled with holes. It was obvious that this fog was highly toxic. Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu could only fight in the air. They didn't dare to land on the ground because of this. Chu Yang looked at this green poisonous gas, and thought, no wonder this guy is called the green rainbow blood snake. Its mouth and body are blood red, but it can spurt out green rainbow poisonous fog. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.